I'm told we have a quorum of 102. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to read the service of the warrant. And on this 17th day of April 2019, true attested copies of the warrant for the annual town meeting commencing on May 6, 2019 were posted within the town hall by James Peterson Constable and attested by Elizabeth Greendale, Town Clerk. Our first order of business is we have no moderator, as you can see. Mrs. Deliker resigned her position, and we thank her for her years of service. I'm not sure if she's here yet. I haven't seen her. She is. Thank you, Jackie. We are going to elect a moderator right now on town meeting floor. So I'm going to ask for nominations. If anybody has a nomination for... You can... William Mayer. I need a second on that? Okay, Mr. Mayor, are you here? Yes. Mr. Mayor, do you accept the nomination? Yes. Okay, are there any other nominations from the floor? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close nominations. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, now we're going to vote. All those in favor of Mr. William Mayer being moderator this evening and for this town meeting, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, that carries. Mr. Mayor, please come up and get sworn in. Shut it off. This comes out too. Took this out too. Oh, Jesus. Nope. You're going to sit right here as soon as she's done. We have changes. I've got all the changes and the motions for you. Okay. Okay, so do that for me. We'll move me over here. Okay. And these are his omnibus, right? Okay. Okay. So this is me. That's me. This is Bill. I'm going to get up. Okay. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to uphold your duties as moderator for this annual town meeting, May 6, 2019, to perform your duties impartially to the best of your ability, to abide by the town of Holliston bylaws and all the laws of Commonwealth government and this town meeting?
I do. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, just, you can take some time to get yourself settled,
Okay.
and I'll give you the motions and everything you need.
Great.
That thing should be shut off right now.
This one's active here, as
That
far as
is
you know.
yours. Yes, and there have been some changes. Article 25, here's the motion, but here.
Is that
That's
omnibus?
your omnibus
Got it.
with the changes.
That you want?
Yep.
That's your water
Got
over
it.
there.
Bill to go across to 0 and
Perfect.
everything, I'll have that.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
Good.
Good evening. Just a couple of preliminary comments. Thank you for entrusting me with this responsibility this evening. And thank you all for coming out and attending town meeting. As you know, we can't do any business without a quorum. By this time next year, I'd like to see twice the number we have here tonight, but thank you all each for coming out. And as you know, we in Holliston have a tradition of changing our moderators infrequently. This last occurred when the prior moderator moved out of town. We needed a moderator. Jackie Deliker, who was retiring as town clerk, kindly volunteered to step forward at a time when she had every right to just look forward to kicking back and relaxing. She did the town a privilege and an honor by having her serve in that capacity. There was nobody that I know who worked harder at the position and dedicated herself to it. She was fair, she was objective in all of her rulings, and she loves the town, and it certainly showed through there. So it's my privilege to take up the banner for her now and carry on the tradition that she established of having good, solid, productive town meetings, and I thank her. Now, if we can, prior to Article 1, We have a motion that the following non-residents and non-voting town officials, consultants to committees be allowed to speak during the course of the annual town meeting. This is a standard article for those of you who are just joining us tonight for the first time that allows non-residents to speak at town meeting floor. The individuals are listed in the article, but I'll describe them quickly. Scott Moles, Health Director Agent; Leslie McDonald, Library Director; Sharon Emmerich, Town Accountant; Catherine Pierce, Principal Assessor; Brad Jackson, Superintendent of Schools; Peter Botello, Assistant Superintendent of Schools; Dan McLeod, Director of Technology and Digital Learning; Sean Reese, DPW Director; Karen Sherman, Town Planner; Matt Stone, Police Chief; Chris Mio, Technology Director; Ryan Clapp, Conservation Agent; John Evans, Keefe Tech Superintendent; Dolores Sharrock, Keefe Tech; Jeff Ritter, Town Administrator; Mary Busquet, Treasurer Collector; Jason Tallerman, Town Council; Dan Brown, Special Labor Council; Jacqueline Weiner, Youth and Family Services Director; Linda Marshall, Senior Center Director; Donna Walsh, Animal Control Officer; Kenneth Onofre, Petitioner; Mark Frank, Petitioner. Is there a second? All those in favor? Those opposed? So voted. Article 1, to hear and act on the report of the Board of Selectmen. The motion is that the annual report of the town for the 12-month period ending June 30th, 2018 be accepted. Is there a second? Selectmen wish to be heard, or they just want to stand on the report? Mr. Marsden?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. I know it's giving up the Red Sox, the Celtics, and the Bruins. We're watching them right there on that monitor on my desk, so if you have any questions, let me know. If I yell with excitement, it won't be because of a town meeting article. It'll probably be because of something else. And I hope nobody drops the gloves tonight like they might at the Bruins game over any of these articles on tonight's warrant. As usual, it's been a busy couple of months. We get a few articles that are basic housekeeping. I'll let the Finance Committee talk about their articles. There's a couple of things that we have before you. Selling some surplus property, tax title takings, paying some outstanding bills. Article 4 is an article that in the warrant to address what had become for our town an outdated personnel bylaw. So some work was done with our attorneys, Labor Council, to come in and try to bring that law up to compliance for state and federal regulations. Article 5 makes some changes to a personnel board. We've had a personnel board in town for years. It's become a bit of a relic, and we had a little bit of interest for people who wanted to serve on it, not a lot. As a result, the Board of Selectmen was sort of the de facto appeals board for people who might have had matters, so we ended up finding ourselves in that role. So there's an article in there that takes that personnel board out of it in the interest of efficiency and for what we had been doing. That's just basically formalizing what had already been going on. Article 9 authorizes some money that's being spent under a Chapter 90 allocation from the state for some roadway and repairs. That's about $500,000. Article 10 reauthorizes the spending limits on some revolving funds. We're required to do that every year, so that's in there. There's some property tax exemption articles. The assessors are going to explain those. Article 17 outlines a list of capital request items that have been voted on and approved. Article 18, the Community Preservation Committee is going to talk about their article tonight. Article 20 is some minor housekeeping changes to our regional vocational school agreement. A lot of the changes had to do mostly with the fact that Framingham switched from a town to a city, so there were some language changes for that. Article 21 authorizes the spending for the purposes of planning, permitting, and designing for the engineering of the new water treatment plant. Article 22 is for the library to help them put together a plan, if you will, for what a 21st century library is going to look like and how to best serve the community and serve the folks in town. Article 23 is an article that would allow the Board of Selectmen to move forward with a plan to put solar panels on the former landfill up by Marshall Street to help reduce the cost of electricity. Articles 24, 25, and 26 are all related to a grant of an easement and some redevelopment of the space down at Blair Square across from Coffee Haven, right around where Casey's and the rail trail intersect, to make some improvements for that area down there. Article 27 is an article that would allow the town would adopt a Mass General bylaw that would give us as the Board of Selectmen the authority to set speed limits in town at or around 20 or 25 miles an hour. Article 28, the Economic Development Committee is going to present on that item. And then Article 33 is a question around whether or not the town should hire a sustainability coordinator. And then there's an Article 34, which is another operation in town looking for a full liquor license, which we'll have to petition the state for. So that is a 30,000-foot overview. I promised I would be brief. I hope I was. And with that, thank you again, Mr. Moderator.
Any further discussion? If not, then all those in favor of accepting the report of the selectmen? All those opposed? So voted. Article 2, to hear the report of the FinCom. Selected motion. Move that the annual report of the Finance Committee be received and laid on the table, and that motions offered in the report be accepted as motions before this meeting as the articles on the budget are taken up. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Shader?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you for actually saying my name correctly.
I should know by now, Ken.
I was going to say, I thought everybody knew by now, but it's still problematic. So, okay, as usual, I'm here for my annual overview of the finances in town. And using our new modern technology, I'll just get right to it. Now I got to hit 2 buttons. But I'm just going to go quickly over the FY20 budget planning process, our revenue models, our budget parameters, and how we came up with the numbers you see in the warrant. Okay. So start by talking about revenue. If you look at where we are, you know, you've heard me for many years talk about local aid and how local aid has been relatively flat. Well, the good news is that this year the state decided to cough up a little more money. And I will say one thing that I've heard a lot this year. It's important for the town to understand that when economic times are good, we don't benefit necessarily directly as a town. And that's because most of our revenue comes from the property tax, which is capped by Prop 2.5. So the way we see good economic times is generally through increased state aid. So that's an important point. So this year, of course, the economy was strong. We have better net state aid. It's the largest increase since FY13. Certainly helped. When looking at our local revenues, things like the excise tax, those are the components that do have an economic component to them. We estimated those to be up 4%. That's just a model number. We don't know the actuals, obviously, till FY20. But based on the collections we've had so far in FY19, those are good numbers to use. And the total tax levy looks to be up about 4.7%. That does not mean your tax bill is going up 4.7%. What that means is that we had good new growth last year. And that gets added to the tax base, which increases the levy for the following year. So we had a bigger bump in the tax levy this year. The important thing to note about that is that that is definitely not permanent. And part of the reason for that is that as a town, we are reaching capacity, so to speak. We're not there yet, but we can't have many, many years of phenomenal new growth because we're literally going to run out of places to build things. So it's good that we had it this year, but it's not something we can count on every year. Okay? When you look at all that combined, we had about $2.4 million of money to above our FY19 model to look at for spending this year. Okay, that's working well. Okay, so I just described the revenue side. On the cost side, we had insurance and benefit costs that were up $454,000. Other fixed costs were up $111,000. We increased the annual capital appropriation to $1.75 million. That's the recommendation on one of the articles tonight that I'll talk about. That brings us closer to our capital plan goals. Still not quite there, but we're getting there, and certainly a long way. We've come a long way so far, but we still have further to go there. It continues the permanent funding for our OPEB liability, our other post-employment benefits, at $1.5 million per year. It's included in the benefits budget that's been recommended. It has no incremental impact to the operating budgets because it's a fixed amount per year. We build that in every year. It doesn't go anywhere, so it doesn't have to increase on a year-to-year basis. We did that intentionally, so there would be no incremental revenue needed for it. So in general, the Finance Committee's philosophy was what it always has been, which is to remain cautious and try to move more towards sustainability. That's always our ultimate goal. From the budget guideline side of things, the departments were given a 1.5% guideline. You've probably heard me say that many years, too. That's because that's the natural place where the guideline falls, given the limits of Prop 2.5. Personnel costs, we allowed for a 2.5% increase for our employees in town. Obviously, union personnel are covered by CBAs. And just as a reminder, that's 2/3 of the cost of operation of this town is personnel. So that's a very important thing. The wage table, which is part of the new bylaw that's being proposed tonight, the new personnel bylaw under Article 4, that has the 2.5% recommended increase in the wage tables included in that article. When you look at the omnibus budget in the warrant, or in the FinCom report, you'll see that most of the budget recommendations are slightly above guideline. That's because of the wage table adjustment. If a department had salaries that were going up 2.5%, and they would cause some budget problems, we often allowed them to go a little bit over the guideline to meet the salary requirements. And of course, there were some limited service expansions that I'll discuss momentarily. Okay, the schools, and I have to say this, last year I caught a lot of flack for referring to the schools as the 800-pound gorilla. So in this era of not using those kinds of references, I'll just call it the $35 million gorilla from now on. So the recommended budget this year is $34,947,263. It's an increase of 3.9% over FY19. It increases the service level, albeit slightly, and that's largely because the contractual salary costs for the schools were up $967,000 over last year. In addition, for the schools, you'll see in the capital article, we're recommending $442,583 in capital spending for the schools. And as a reminder, based on our last actuarial valuation, about 75% of the OPEB trust money that we're putting away is for school employees. So when people talk about school funding, I think it's very important to know that it's not just the one number. There are other components that go into the schools, and we put a lot of money towards that. If you look at the school budget over the last 10 years, and I'm pointing this out this year because I've heard over recent years, everybody says to me, why do you hold the schools to a 1.5% guideline? And I say, we never have. We ask them to do that. They give us what their service needs are. We work with them every year, and we have a constructive dialogue every year to try to come up with a budget. And over the last 10 years, they've actually averaged 2.73% yearly. Other budgets of note, as I said, there were a couple of increases. We increased hours at the Youth and Family Services Department. Everybody knows there's been an increase in mental health issues and things like that. So we saw that the demand was far exceeding our capability to meet that demand, so we increased hours there. There's also the addition of 2 police officers to bring us more in line with recommendations for a town of our size as we grow. There are also some staffing adjustments in the treasurer-collector budget, and I don't need to point out that it's always good to have the right staffing in the treasurer-collector's office since they bring us all the money. The solid waste budget, as almost everybody has heard over the past year, there have been a lot of changes in the recycling market. That is coming to roost this year, so there were adjustments that had to be made in the solid waste budget. We also have a new trash contract starting July. Keefe Tech is up slightly this year, less so than it has been in the past few years, but again, it's because we have increased enrollment there. And we also added staffing to the Veterans District, again, to meet recommendations for staffing there. But it's important to note that everything that we have recommended tonight results in no service reductions in any budget. Okay. So let's talk about OPEB very briefly, because this is a big chunk of money. Make sure I'm still in sync here. The funds that we have been invested in the Massachusetts Pension Reserves Investment Trust, otherwise known as PRIT, since February of 2015. To date, we've invested almost just under $11 million, as you see there. As of March 31st of this year, our fund is at 13.25, roughly $13.25 million. So as you can see, we are getting at least some return on our investment. The latest actuarial evaluation is that we're 31.74% funded as of July 1, 2017, and that's because of the lag in the reporting. But I do want to just say one thing here. One of the things that I think distinguishes Holliston from a lot of our other communities is that our finance committee, and I've had the pleasure of working with plenty of great people over the years, we've always tried to look forward because, frankly, we don't want to leave for the next generation a financial mess. This is one of those things. We got out ahead of this problem. We are way ahead. If you look at, based on the last time I talked to the actuary that does the valuation, the comment he made was that we were in the 96th, the top like 97th percentile or something of towns and entities in the Commonwealth in funding this obligation. I think that's something that the town should be very proud of. It's not something we could have done on our own. The town has supported our recommendations all these years, and we greatly appreciate it. and we are putting Holliston in a much better position than almost every other town in the Commonwealth. Okay, finally, I just go through the financial highlights. Mr. Marsden mentioned some of the tax foreclosure issues. I already mentioned Article 5 updates the personnel bylaw and adds the 2.5% increase. There are a couple of late bills under Article 6. For those of you who don't know, late bills are basically things that come in after the close of the fiscal year. Once we've closed the books, then it requires we have to pay the bills. We just have to come to town meeting to pay them to note that these were not included in the closing of the books. It's just a small amount. We also have Article 9. People often ask about that. That has no financial impact. That merely allows the town to spend money that we have to do road and infrastructure improvements. Article 10, you recall last year we were here approving an article. Rather than having to approve every single revolving fund every year, we passed an article last year that allowed us to establish permanent revolving funds. On an annual basis, we have to authorize the spending limits for those. So Article 10 just authorizes the spending limits, and there are no changes from last year. Okay. Article 11, there is a slight change from prior years. 11 through 14 all involve adjustments to property taxes for different situations. This year, the Finance Committee supported the Board of Assessors' recommendation to raise the exemption to 100% from 20%. They'll talk about that more, but I just want to make perfectly clear, this is not a 100% exemption for property tax. This is an exemption amount, a small amount that certain people under certain circumstances can get waived. It's veterans and some other special situations. And we're just raising the amount of the exemption, it's not a percentage of their actual tax bill. It's just a small amount of their tax bill. 12 through 14, again, those are the standard exemptions we've offered every year. 15 is the omnibus budget. With what we've proposed today, we'll have an $8,096 surplus on the bottom line. What that means, two things. It means, first of all, that we're very much in balance, barely so. And that if anybody wants to spend any more money tonight, they have to find out where it's coming from, because we don't have it. The benefits budget that was in the Finance Committee report, we updated that, and that was to reflect some changes, again, back to the personnel bylaw. So the budget was, we added $75,000 to the benefits budget, so when you hear that budget, it will be slightly different than what was printed in our report, but we did support that revised amount. Article 16 adds the $1.75 million to the capital expenditure fund. Article 17 is where we spend the money from the fund, and as you see in the report, the total spending should be, is listed as $986,000. One item has been removed from what was published in our report, and that is the parking lot work at the Placentino and Miller schools, and that's because our DPW is going to cover that at no cost. So there's a bigger repair required, so they're going to take care of the short-term repair while we evaluate what the bigger repair is. So as a result, we're spending $25,000 less, and you'll hear that in the motion for Article 17 as well. Okay, good. Okay, Article 18 is the CPC funding. There's only recommended $40,000 spending on one project, but there is one little nit to that I'll get to under Article 25. You'll see several motions under Article 18. Most of that is associated with just taking the CPC funds and putting them into the different reserves that the CPC has, but there's only one project there for $40,000. 19 is stabilization. We will deal with that in the fall. 21 is the $600,000, represents the initial payment for the design work for the treatment plant. Last year, we voted to have the borrowing authority to borrow the full money for the project. We don't need to do that yet because we have this money available to fund the initial work, so we're going to do that. And over the course of the next year, we're going to get the details on the actual expenditure, and we'll probably come before you next May looking for the rest of the money in terms of either a borrowing or some other financing package. Article 22, I'm probably the last person in this town who should be talking about Article 22, because I went to the Board of Selectmen and I said in December, I think it's time we think about an alternative to the building that's crumbling on Washington Street. And that got reported by Bobby Blair as something like, FinCom chair recommends that we dynamite the library or something like that. So everybody knows that I've always joked that I could solve the library's problems with 3 sticks of dynamite, which is probably why he said that. But we do need to start, as a serious matter, The building is very old. I know it has historic value. The question is whether it has value as a library. And I'm not saying we abandon that. That's a whole separate discussion. But the first step in figuring out what do we do, as you know, we have extensive structural repairs going on there now. We need to have a plan for what's going to happen to that structure, whether it's going to be our library and we have to sink a lot of money into it to bring it up to modern standards, or whether we start looking at alternatives. That's what Article 22 is going to start that process. 23 is the pilot solar plant that Mr. Marsden referred to. Article 25 is the Blair Square work. There's a grant application out there to fund this amount, but we need to do the pre-funding for it. In the report, we said we recommend indefinite postponement, and that reason for that was because we supported that coming from CPC funds, not from the general fund. Since that time, the CPC has voted to support that. So even though I mentioned there was only one spending issue under Article 18, there really is another one under Article 25, which is to fund the Blair Square work. And as a committee, we are in favor of that. Okay. Article 26 funds rail trail maintenance. Just to be clear, this is a one-time appropriation. This is not an annual appropriation of $1,000. They still have to come to us whenever they need money. And Article 33, which is a petition article, I just wanted to be clear because there's been obviously a lot of discussion among town on the sustainability coordinator. I'll let them, say their piece. But I do want to make sure everybody understands what's binding and what's not binding about that, because a lot of people say, well, it's not binding, it's not binding. Statutorily, town meeting cannot force the Board of Selectmen to hire anyone. So in that sense, it's non-binding. We can, as a group, make recommendations, but ultimately the hiring and firing authority is left with the Board of Selectmen. However, from a financial standpoint, we can, as town meeting, make binding financial decisions. So my concern was that everybody said non-binding, and I wanted to make sure that town meeting understood that if we allocate money, we would just be tying it up for no reason, in the sense that if we allocated money for the position and the selectmen chose not to hire it, then the money just sits there and we can't use it because it's allocated, but they can't spend it because the position doesn't exist. So I worked with the petitioners behind that, and I believe that the motion that they will propose tonight meets what I asked them to do, which is I said, look, I want you to construct a motion that does not tie up the funds, but will allow us to give you the funds if the selectmen choose to proceed with that. So that proposed motion should be, if they go with what I think they're going to go with, that motion should be okay. Okay. Finally, the budget you're going to go over tonight, a lot of this is the same stuff I say every year. We have to maintain fiscal discipline. We've increased service levels in some areas. There are no reductions. And of course, we meet every Tuesday throughout budget season, and we were on camera again this year. We finally got somebody to do camera for us so we were mostly televised this year. We have the section on the town website where we post a lot of the budgets prior to our review. And we, of course, have our email there, you can see. And I have the same message. I was going to change it this year, and I said, no, it's really the same, right? Ultimately, as a finance committee, we always believe in fiscal discipline, but for us, it's all about value. We recognize the town expects a certain level of service. We try to provide that service. Our job is to make sure we're getting that service at what we consider to be the best possible price. And we will continue to do that. We're not always perfect. Nobody is. But I think that our philosophy has served us well over these many years and has positioned Holliston to be one of the better rated communities in Metro West. Thank you, everybody, and have a good town meeting.
Thank you, Ken. Now, bearing in mind that you have the opportunity to raise questions about each of the upcoming articles and ask Ken specific questions about any one of them, is there any further discussion with respect to the report of the FinCom? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That's so voted. Article 3, to authorize the treasurer to sell foreclosure tax title properties. To see if the town will vote to authorize the town treasurer, subject to the approval of the selectmen, to sell property acquired through foreclosure of tax titles by the town and other real estate, after first giving notice of the time and place of the sale by posting such notice of sale in some convenient place in the town, by publishing such notice of sale in a newspaper having general circulation in the town, and by posting such notice on a cable Holliston Cable Access Television, HCAT, bulletin board, and on the town's website for at least 14 days before the sale. The treasurer shall also give notice of such sale to the executive director of the Holliston Housing Authority, the chair of the Holliston Housing Trust, and the chair of the Holliston Housing Committee, or its subsequent equivalent by first-class letter at least 45 days before the sale. The treasurer may hold a public auction and may reject any bid which he or she deems inadequate, and any such advertisement, notice, or indication that real property is to be offered for sale by the town of Holliston or any department, commission, or other subdivision of the town shall include the following statement. Buyers should be aware that the town of Holliston does not guarantee this property to be in conformity with existing zoning bylaws. Whenever the proceeds of the sale or other disposal of real estate other than that acquired through tax title foreclosure by the town of Holliston exceed $500, the same shall be applied to the payment of indebtedness incurred in acquiring such real estate or shall be added to the sinking fund, if any, from which said indebtedness is payable, or if no such indebtedness is outstanding, will be applied to the town's capital expenditure fund as established by Chapter 46 of the Acts of 1993. The proceeds of the sale in excess of $500 of any parkland by the town shall be used only by the town for acquisition of land for park purposes or capital improvement to parkland, or take any action relative thereto. The motion is move that this article be approved as presented in the warrant. Is there a second? Yes, you have a second. Any discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 4, to revise and adopt a new consolidated personnel bylaw. The article reads, to see if the town will vote to revise the existing personnel bylaw and adopt a new personnel bylaw to be consistent with the special act and to bring the bylaw into compliance with state and federal regulations or take any action relative thereto. The suggested motion is as follows. Move that this article be approved as presented in the revised form available to voters on the website and as depicted in the handout available to town meeting. Is there a second? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signal by saying aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 5, amend the general bylaw personnel board. The article reads, to see if the town will vote to amend Article 32, personnel board of the general bylaws by deleting it in its entirety. Suggested motion, move that the town vote to amend the consolidated personnel bylaw by eliminating the town personnel board. Is there a second? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Unpaid bills. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for unpaid bills from prior years, or take any action relative thereto. The vendors were seeking to have approval for Mead, Talaman, and Costa for fiscal year 2018 in the amount of $1,036.46, and Thomas Chipman Electric for the fiscal year 2018 in the amount of $201. The motion is move that the town raise and appropriate $1,237.46 for the payment of bills from fiscal year 2018. We'll note that this requires a 4/5 vote. We'll try it on a voice vote after discussion, and if it's unanimous, we'll proceed in that fashion. It's open for discussion. Any discussion on the payment of those unpaid bills from prior fiscal years? Do we have a second on that? Thank you. Thank you. Sister Liz. All those in favor signal by aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 7, current, any change to this one, Article 7? No. Article 7, current fiscal year transfers. To see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds a sum of money for the purpose of supplementing various accounts of the town's fiscal year 2019 annual operating budget, previously voted by the town under Article 16 of the warrant for the 2018 annual town meeting and under Article 1 of the warrant for October 29, 2018 special town meeting, or take any action relative thereto. The motion I've provided indicates that move that the town vote to indefinitely postpone on this article as there are no current transfers required. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 8, authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell surplus equipment. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to hold a public auction for the purpose of disposing of surplus departmental equipment or take any action relative thereto. Motion, move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of surplus equipment, including office equipment, property, or vehicles during fiscal year 2020. Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? So voted. Article 9, authorization to expand Chapter 90, parens State Aid for Highways Program. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Department of Public Works, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, to use and expend sums received from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as reimbursements under the Chapter 90 State Aid to Highways Program for further construction, reconstruction, and improvements, including surface treatments of approved public ways within the town, or take any action relative thereto. Motion, move that the Department of Public Works, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to use and expend sums received from the Commonwealth of Mass as reimbursements under Chapter 90 State Aid to Highways Program for further construction, reconstruction, and improvements, including surface treatments of approved public ways within the town. Do we have a second? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? So voted. Article 10, revolving fund spending limits. To see if the town will vote to authorize the spending limits for the following revolving funds established under the town bylaw and general laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2. I'll just give you the revolving fund and the present spending limit. Wetlands filing fee, $40,000 spending limit. Council on Aging, $5,000. Compost, again, these aren't appropriations, these are spending limits within these revolving accounts. Composting kit, $3,000. Response and recovery, $25,000. Abutters list, $5,000. Building inspection, $100,000. Town hall rental, $25,000. Senior center van, $10,000. Agricultural Commission, $10,000. Sealer of weights and measures, $5,000. Fluorescent bulb recycling, $3,000. Banner, $5,000. Accident fee, $5,000. Inoculation, $20,000. Cost of prosecution, $30,000. Nutrition, $10,000. Pinecrest Golf Course, $200,000. Technology repair and replenish, $75,000. The motion is, move that the town vote to authorize spending limits for the revolving funds as they are printed in the warrant and established under the town's general bylaws and pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2. Do we have a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? So voted. Article 11, we're going to start the property tax issues as described, articles as described by Mr. Shader. Article 11, property tax exemptions. This is sponsored by the Board of Assessors. To see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Chapter 73 of the Acts of 1986 as amended by Chapter 126 of the Acts of 1988, authorizing the Board of Assessors to grant an increase of 100% to all exemptions from property taxes, excluding those granted under Clause 18 of Section 5 of Chapter 59 of the Massachusetts General Laws for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2019, or take any action relative thereto. The suggested motion is, and the motion will be as follows: move that the town vote to accept the provisions of Chapter 73 of the Acts of 1986 as amended by Chapter 126 of the Acts of 1988, authorizing the Board of Assessors to grant an increase of 100% to all exemptions from property taxes, excluding those granted under Clause 18 of Section 5 of Chapter 59 of the General Laws for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2019. Do we have a second? Any discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 12, sponsored by the Board of Assessors, circuit breaker income adjustment to deferral applicants. To see if the town will vote to increase the gross receipt that seniors may have in the prior calendar year to be eligible to defer property taxes under General Laws, Chapter 184, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41A, from $20,000 to the amount established annually by the Commissioner of Revenue as the income limit to qualify for the circuit breaker state income tax credit for the preceding state tax year, parentheses, single seniors who are not head of household, and for married couples filing a joint return, with such increase to be effective for deferrals granted for taxes assessed for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019. The motion is as follows. Move that the town vote to increase the gross receipt that seniors may have in the prior calendar year to be eligible to defer property taxes from $20,000 to an amount established by the Commissioner of Revenue as outlined under Article 12. Do I have that seconded? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes. Thank you. Article 13, amend interest rate per annum, again sponsored by the Board of Assessors, to see if the town will vote to amend the interest rate per annum from 8% to 6% under the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41A, which regulates tax deferral for homeowners 65 years or older, pursuant to the authority contained in Chapter 136 of the Acts of 2005, thereby amending said Clause 41A, or take any action relative thereto. The motion is as follows. Move that the town vote pursuant to the provisions of Clause 41A as amended of Section 5 of General Laws, Chapter 59, as amended by Chapter 136 of the Acts of 2005, amending the interest rate per annum from 8% to 6% for tax deferrals for homeowners 65 years or older for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2019. Is there a second for that? Any discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Thank you. Article 14, amend income requirements sponsored by the Board of Assessors to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Section 51 of Chapter 184 of the Acts of 2002, amending the income requirements under Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41C, or take any action relative thereto. The motion is as follows. Move that the town vote to accept the provisions of Section 51 of Chapter 184 of the Acts of 2002, amending the income requirements under the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41C, for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2019. Do we have a second? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes. Thank you. Fiscal year 2020 budget, Article 15, sponsored by the FinCom. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds to meet expenses and outlays to town departments, salaries of town offices, sundry and miscellaneous but regular expenditures for a reserve fund, and to appoint trustees or caretakers or authorize the selectmen to appoint caretakers of the cemeteries of the town not otherwise provided for the ensuing year, or take any action relative thereto. This is the omnibus budget article. The motion is as follows. Move to appropriate the sum of $64,933,426 to meet the expenses and outlays for town departments, salaries of town offices, sundry and miscellaneous but regular expenditures, for a reserve fund and all other expenses of the town not otherwise provided for, and to meet this appropriation, the sum of $62,623,034 shall be raised by taxation, and the sum of $2,310,392 shall be transferred from the Water Enterprise Fund, with all department expenses reflected on the handout to town meeting and as shown on the screen. So we will now move to a department-by-department deliberation with respect to the town budget. I'll take it by department, and I'll read it by line item. In order to make sure that everybody's concerns are addressed, if you will, just loudly yell out "pass" on a particular line item, and that will alert me that you want to be heard. And then after we finish my description of each of the line items, then return to the article on which there is a pass. As Mr. Shader indicated earlier, what the town is presenting, as I understand it, is a balanced budget in which the revenue has been identified and the proposed expenditure of funds having been identified. I think it's fair to say that it would be incumbent upon anyone who's making a motion to increase a line item, if you're not decreasing another line item within the same departmental budget, it would be most helpful if you could identify the source from which you would suggest that any proposed increase in expenditures would be derived from, so that we can maintain a balanced budget throughout the course of the process. The first department we'll move to will be the Board of Selectmen, if we could. Personal Services account, the requested appropriation for the upcoming fiscal year is $239,855. Purchased services, $56,000. Supplies and materials, $300. Other expenses, $5,700, for a total appropriation for the Board of Selectmen for the upcoming fiscal year would be $301,855. Had I sought a second on the omnibus motion?
No, I didn't know if you were going to get them individually.
I'm going to ask that we have a second for the whole omnibus budget motion to save the necessity of a second on each and every departmental budget. Do I have a second in that fashion? Thank you. Jay, is that format acceptable to you for description of the budget?
Yeah, you can do either micro line items or the whole selectmen one. It's your call
Okay.
entirely.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take it on the entire departmental budget as described. So the motion is to approve for the selectmen has been seconded, the sum of $301,855. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Those opposed? So voted. A Finance Committee, Personal Services, $1,220. Supplies and Materials, $50. Other expenses, $255. The total, I had to believe, Ken, but really, that's the total, huh? $1,525 for the Finance Committee for the year. Any discussion on that? Oh, I invited it. Oh, go right ahead, Ken. I'm sorry.
I'll just say for the record that we would be hypocrites if we didn't maintain our own budget like we try to maintain the town's budget. So
So
we're down
noted.
86% over the last
Okay.
15 years.
Beautiful. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. If not, then all those in favor of $1,525 for the FinCom? Any opposed? So voted. Other financial administration, reserved for transfers, $315,000. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Town accountant, personal services, $139,045. Purchased services, $33,061. Supplies and materials, $550. Other expenses, $700, for a total of $173,356. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Board of Assessors, personal services, $196,797. Purchase services, $24,000. Supplies and materials, $1,000. Other expenses, $3,473, for a grand total of $225,270. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Treasurer Collector, personal services, $323,301. Purchase services, $53,105. Supplies and materials, $5,000. Other expenses, $2,000, for a total of $383,406 for the Treasurer Collector. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Technology Department, personal services, $92,184. Purchase services, $5,025. Supplies and materials, $200. Capital outlay, $46,226. For a total for the Technology Department of $143,635. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? That passes. Town Clerk, personal services, $146,795. Purchase services, $5,280. Supplies and materials, $920. Other expenses, $3,313. The total for the town clerk for the upcoming fiscal year is suggested to be $156,308. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? That passes. Elections. Personal services, $14,206. Purchase services, $4,012. Supplies and materials, $3,715. Total for elections, $21,933. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? That passes. Conservation Commission. Personal services, $47,806. Purchase services, $2,418. Supplies and materials, $425. Other expenses, $1,500. The total for the Concom for the year would be $52,149. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? That passes. Planning Board. Personal services, $81,947. Purchase services, $4,900. Supplies and materials, $250. Other expenses, $500. Total for the Planning Board, $87,597. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? That passes. Zoning Board of Appeals. Personal services, $7,229. Purchase services, $4,028. Supplies and materials, $150. Other expenses, 0. Total for the Zoning Board of Appeals would be $11,407. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Economic Development. Personal services, $9,283. Purchase services, $3,190. Supplies and materials, $200. Total for economic development, $12,673. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye, please. Those opposed? That passes. Public buildings. Purchase services, $280,850. Supplies and materials, $1,750. Total for public buildings, $282,600. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Just let us have your name and residence, please, sir. Thank you.
John Varel, 928 Washington Street. I'm not sure this is the right item to ask the question about, but about a year ago, we spent $2 million on 1750 Washington Street, the new recreation building. I work from home. I'm in sales. I drive by that building all the time. I rarely see more than 6, 7 cars in the driveway. How much of this money is going to maintain that building? And is there a plan to get that building better utilized than what it appears to be utilized today?
How much of this money is being used to maintain that building?
Yeah, and then utilization of that property.
Use the microphone if you could so they can pick you up at home.
I'd like to know how much money we're spending on maintaining that particular building, and is there an effort to try and better utilize this $2 million investment?
Either the selectman or the FinCom. Ken?
I'll just comment. Ken Shada, 676 Fifth Street. Just the public buildings budget isn't broken down by actual building. It's a fund that provides for all the buildings we own, except the schools are somewhat separate. But so it's from a financial standpoint, it's tough to say how much of that is. There's nothing specifically earmarked per building. So as far as the utilization, I mean, it's got Parks and Recs, it's got the Veterans Agent there, and Youth and Family Services. I don't sit around that building often, so I don't know whether the parking lot is full or not, but the building is fully utilized right now, and I know Parks and Rec has a number of programs there. So I'll let the selectmen say anything else they want.
Jay, do you want to be heard on it?
No, I just echo the same comments. So off the top of my head, I can find out the number for you. We can get back to you on the number from a maintenance perspective. As far as this budget tonight, don't have it. And then it's fully utilized, so I'm not sure I understand the concern about its underutilization, but it is. I can't comment on parking lots and how many people are in there at a given time, but it is fully utilized.
I guess I would, John Varel, 928 Washington Street, I guess I would ask what is fully utilized? We have a $2 million building that appears to be supporting the activities of a half a dozen people at any given point in time. So I know that Recreation Department has administrators in there. The building wasn't bought to house administrators. It was bought to house programs. That's why we needed such a large building.
Well, there's 3 town departments that are using that building. They did some work down there to make some changes and reconfigure some of the space for some of the program. So other than saying, let's meet and get down there together and I can walk you through it and you can take a look at all the space and how it's utilized, and then we can have a discussion around whether or not it's underutilized. But I think that'd be the best way to address your concerns in that particular area.
Mr. Frank?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mark Frank. I'm the Parks and Recreation Director. So we do have a number of programs, and we're obviously looking to expand. One thing about the parking lot, about that building, a lot of our programs take place on the bottom floor where we have all the classrooms there, and we ask people to actually drive around the building and park out back. So I know between Tuesday and Wednesday mornings, we have over 60 families that partake in a Music Mommy and Me program. On Thursday afternoons, we bus over 70 kids on Thursdays to the buildings for a variety of different programs. We run all of our rain days at summer camp at that building. We are utilizing it. Obviously, we'd like to utilize it more. We have cooking classes, other things that we're looking to go, get bigger and improve on. But we are utilizing that building. It's not sitting empty all the time. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, did you want to be heard, or are you content? Yes. Okay. Any further discussion? If not, then all those in favor of the appropriation of $282,600 for the Public's building account, signal by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted. Police Department, Personal Services, $2,831,880. Purchase Services, $135,104. Supplies and Materials, $27,910. Other expenses, $21,460. Capital outlay, $1,435. The total for the Police Department, $3,017,789. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Auxiliary. We missed the side. That's right. It says auxiliary police. Yeah, auxiliary police. Got it. Purchase services, $190. Supplies and materials, $7,364. Other expenses, $6,210. Total for the auxiliary police, $13,764. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Fire Department. Personal Services, $773,905. Purchase Services, $66,650. Supplies and Materials, $11,500. Other expenses, $5,250. Capital outlay, $13,092, for total for the Fire Department of $870,397. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Ambulance, Personal Services, $347,385. Purchase Services, $104,050. Supplies and materials, $24,100. Other expenses, $2,000. Capital outlay, 0. Total for the ambulance for the upcoming fiscal year requested is $477,535. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Building inspection, personal services, $132,089. Purchase services, $4,100. Supplies and materials, $700. Other expenses, $1,800. Capital outlay, $25,000. Building inspection, total amount requested, $163,689. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? That passes. Sealer of weights and measures, personal services, 0. Request for sealers of weights and measures in total, 0. Any discussion? Should be limited, but nonetheless. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of awarding the sealer of weights and measures, 0, say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Emergency management, purchase services, $10,515. Supplies and materials, $311. Other expenses, $450. Total for emergency management, $11,276. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Animal control officer, purchased services, $38,000. Total for animal control officer, $38,000. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. School department, personal services, $28,267,764. Purchased services, $3,794,268. Again, to correct my mistake, $3,794,268. Supplies and materials, $580,885. Fuels, $59,951. Intergovernmental, $1,680 and $1,680,330. Again, to correct, $1,680,330. Other expenses, $379,258. Capital outlay, $184,807, for a total for the school department for the upcoming fiscal year, $34,947,263. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
John Varrell, 928 Washington Street. I have a freshman in Holliston High School, and one of the classes I hear most about is DSB, because our kids are spending an enormous amount of time in study hall when teachers call out sick and they can't get substitute teachers to come in. This winter, my son spent more than half his day twice sitting in the cafeteria. The question I would ask the school committee is, does this budget include monies to approve our ability to get substitute teachers to give kids full days of academic programs?
School committee? Who is it?
Stacy.
Okay. Got it. Stacy, for the record, give us your name and address, please.
Stacy Raffi, 20 Arthur Street, Chair of School Committee. The substitute shortage is not an issue specific to Holliston. It is a statewide issue. We have increased our pay for substitutes, and we're doing the best we can to make sure that students have the instruction that they need. This is not a Holliston issue. If I had the solution, I would be a millionaire right now. But the schools are doing what they can to make sure that students have what they need for the instruction for the time being. We've talked about it at school committee. I'm happy
Stacy,
to talk to you.
keep your voice up,
Sorry.
please. Thank you.
So we don't have a permanent solution. We don't have the people to cover. It's a statewide problem.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, then the motion is to appropriate for the school department for the upcoming fiscal year $34,947,263. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? So voted. Keefe Technical School, intergovernmental, $1,252,946. That's the only line no, is that the?
That's it for Keefe Tech, yep.
Got it. That's it for Keefe Tech. All right. Any discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. DPW, Department of Public Works Highway, Personal Services, $818,206. Purchase Services, $151,924. Supplies and Materials, $70,031. Other expenses, $606. Capital outlay, $320,875, for total for the Highway Department of $1,361,642. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Joe DeMarchi, 41 Whispering Lane here in town. My question is not necessarily about the budget, or it could be. I was going to ask the question earlier when we were talking about funds for highway repaving and the like. I drive a lot for my job, probably average about 30,000 miles a year, mostly outside of Holliston. Drive on roads all over the place, highways, back roads, what have you. I've never seen a pavement project done more poorly than this one just was up on Highland and Hollis Street. And my question is, do we not have the funds to do it correctly? Or was the problem with the contractor? Specifically, when you mill a road, there's usually a transition between the milled portion of a road and the next part of the road that's not milled. This one did not have it. I called town twice, suggested that either we do it or the contractor does it. And if anybody was driving around town, you saw the little sign for the bump. The bump is not supposed to be perpendicular to the road. It's supposed to have a transition. So the question is whether or not this is a financial issue or was this a poor workmanship issue?
Ken?
Okay, Ken Shada, 676 Fisk. The answer to your first question, no, it's not a financial issue. Our DPW director, I think, is somewhere here if he wants to talk to the road issues. I don't want to pretend to be a road expert, but it's not a financial issue.
Yeah. Okay.
He's not getting up.
No.
Do you want to just tell us specifically what you're talking about, and then we can follow up with the DPW director to see, to make sure it gets taken care of? Is your issue just to make sure it gets taken care of? Is that your concern?
My concern is that whenever you mill a road,
Come on up to the microphone, sir, so the public can hear you, please. Thank you.
I know.
good to see. So my concern is when you repave a road, you mill it, you sort of chew up the old pavement, brings it down a few inches. And until it's repaved, there's usually a transition, a few feet of pavement. It almost acts like a ramp. So when you drive over it, you don't damage the rims or the tires or any of the like. I've never seen it done before this way. And again, I don't know if it was the contractor. I don't know if it was the town. I didn't know if it was a financial issue. So thank you for the answer on the financial issue.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be a contractor issue. We can follow up with the contractor, and then I can get an answer for you. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Cronin.
Good evening, John Cronin, 40 Holly Lane. In addition to the conversation regarding the budget, Mr. Moderator, I just wanted to alert town meeting members that the Board of Selectmen over the last several months has worked towards a goal of expanding the Department of Public Works specifically to care for our buildings and our infrastructure. A position was proposed for this budget cycle, which unfortunately was not ready for prime time. Working with the Finance Committee, we expect it'll be ready sometime in the fall. But I wanted to insert this item into your thinking because we feel very strongly that this position is needed to help us prioritize the projects in Town Hall, as well as the other buildings in our portfolio. There's a number of different maintenance issues and cost items associated with maintaining our infrastructure in all our buildings. And for years, a lot of that has been neglected or put upon people with the wrong skill set to understand those priorities. Sometime this fall, you'll have a better idea of what the position will include, the sort of portfolio, and the view ahead. One of the issues the Finance Committee wants us to work with is talking with our friends in the school department about expanding that role down the road. Nevertheless, it's an area of expansion that I think the town needs to invest in. You'll be hearing more from us in the fall, and I just want to take the moment, Mr. Moderator, to insert that comment into the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the highway budget? Seeing none, the motion is to appropriate for the Highway Department for the upcoming fiscal year $1,361,642. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Department of Public Works, snow and ice removal. Personal services, $50,000. Purchase services, $106,215. Supplies and materials, $93,785. Total appropriation requested for snow and ice, $250,000. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Solid waste.
Street lighting.
I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me. Thanks, Liz. Street lighting, a single line item, $62,430 for the fiscal year for street lighting. Any discussion? Yes, sir. Mr. Chipman.
Tom Chipman, 116 St. George Road. I'm just wondering why we still don't have LED lighting for the streetlights, and if they could explain why.
Lighting.
Jay Marsden, 32 Winnie Lane. Tom's question was why we don't have LED lighting. We explored it at the last go-round for green community grants. We pay a flat fee for each one of our light fixtures in town, and to flip over to an LED system, we'd have to buy all those fixtures from the power provider, Eversource. So we've just been hanging on to finding the right time to go ahead and put the spend forward, basically, to buy all the fixtures and then go LED. It's on our list of things to do as part of our ongoing commitment to this Green Communities program that we're part of. So we haven't done it yet, but it's one of our to-dos as part of our list. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, then the motion is to appropriate for street lighting for the upcoming fiscal year $62,430. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Solid waste. The recommended appropriation is $1,287,851 for solid waste. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Wastewater treatment. Purchased services, $89,790. Supplies and materials, $2,000, for a total appropriation of $91,790. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Other public works. Motor vehicle fuels, $115,000. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Board of Health. No, strike that. Strike. Board of Health. Sorry about that. Strike that. That's a force of habit. I should just say disregard that. That's legalese leaking in there. Board of Health. Personal services. $136,233. Purchased services, $6,600. Supplies and materials, $800. Other expenses, $1,100. For total appropriation requested for the Board of Health, $144,733. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Council on Aging, personal services, $171,492. Purchase services, $47,700. Supplies and materials, $10,000. Other expenses, $1,200. The total for the Council on Aging requested appropriation, $230,392. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Youth Services, personal services, $117,756. Purchase services, $6,350. Supplies and materials, $1,000. Other expenses, $3,000. Total appropriation requested for youth services, $128,106. Again, correctly, $128,106. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Veteran Services, purchase services, 0. Supplies and materials, $1,300. Intergovernmental, $42,353. Benefits, $25,000. For a total appropriation requested for Veteran Services, $68,653. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Library, personal services, $344,699. Purchase services, $75,163. Supplies and materials, $87,555. Other expenses, $300. Total for the library for the upcoming fiscal year, $507,717. Again, $507,717. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Cronin.
Good evening, John Cronin, 40 Holly Lane. The Finance Committee recommendation for the library budget indicates a note that the column, all budgets are recommended unanimous on all budgets except for the library budget. Could the Finance Committee please explain that objection, please, and why? Thank you.
Yes, Ken Chada, 676 Fisk. That's actually a very simple answer. One of our members' spouses is on the Board of Library Trustees, so he abstained from the vote out of ethical concerns.
Any
But just
further?
for the record, other than that, we were unanimous on the vote.
Okay. So noted. Any further discussion? If not, then the motion is to appropriate for the library for the upcoming fiscal year $507,717. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? So voted. Parks, personal services, $124,218. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Celebrations, $2,000. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Debt service, purchased services, $4,012. Debt service, $5,294,857. Total for debt service, $5,298,869. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? So voted. County retirement, benefits line item, $2,010,385. I'm sorry,
It's
Doug.
a single line.
What's the next one down below? We've got 3 benefits in a row.
Workers, there's workers' comp and then unemployment. So that was county retirement. Yeah,
Got
that's
it.
a
Okay,
single line.
thank you. County retirement, a single item of $2,010,385. That's been seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Workers' compensation, $281,947. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Unemployment, $50,000. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? None, so voted. Employee benefits for insurance, $5,767,481. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. We voted all of those individually, but let's take a catch-all for total for employee benefits, $7,295,000. Strike that.
Hold on.
Bill, just.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ken, go right ahead.
Yeah, the benefits budget you just voted was one piece. There are two pieces to that benefits budget, so you missed the second piece.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Employee benefits, insurance, and then benefits, and then the total.
Which one?
Right here, employee benefits.
Yeah.
is
There should be
insurance,
another 1.6 million.
is-
Oh, we have some
second line.
amended numbers here that didn't come over.
Yeah, so, sure, kind of funny. So this, go back up here. I can see it on mine better, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. It's all right.
Employee benefits,
We had some last-minute adjustments, so we may revisit this.
employee benefits, insurance is the 5
Yep.
million. Then the benefits is the 1,602,000, which is right here.
Okay?
So read that one first, this one, and then there's your total.
All right, so which one is coming first?
Insurance,
Okay.
employee benefits.
Let's make sure we have a correct description for you and a vote. Employee benefits, insurance. The requested amount is $5,767,481.
And then the next one.
Any discussion?
No,
No vote? Okay.
The next line is benefits, and this is the number.
Okay. The next one is benefits. The correct number, the appropriations order is $1,602,875. And the total for employee benefits is $7,370,356.
And those have been corrected, so their
Right.
omnibus doesn't show that.
You content with that, Ken?
Just to be clear, that's the money I referred to in the presentation where I said we adjusted the benefits budget. So that, the numbers you just read are the correct numbers.
Okay.
Should be the numbers we want to vote on.
They're not in there.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for that updated information and any confusion we may have contributed to. Okay, so the appropriated amount as requested, the bottom line, as previously broken out, is $7,370,356. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Department of Public Works, Water.
No, liability insurance.
Liability insurance.
One
Thank
line.
you.
It's a one line.
I got
It's a
it,
one-liner,
yes.
yep.
Liability insurance, $275,572. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Department of Public Works, Water. Personal Services, $844,466. Purchase Services, $464,500. Supplies and Materials, $268,500. Intergovernmental, $3,600. Other expenses, $9,000. Capital outlay, $15,000. Debt service, $705,326, for a total for DPW Water of $2,310,392. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Tyler.
Just so you know, that's the total of this.
Where's this plus 75 come from?
Don't worry about
All
that.
right.
This total is this new one here.
So do you want to vote for this? No?
I don't know, do you want to vote?
No, we already did it. So this is our last one?
So that's all confusing.
Got it.
Liz Tyler, 17 Norland Street. I wanted to know why the capital outlay was $15,000.
Anybody from
Is
the
the
water
water
department?
department replacing pipes at the same time? I see it's under another section, but I wondered why it wasn't here.
Okay. Anybody from the water department here that can field Ms. Tyler's question? Or from the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen? Ken, any idea? Oh, I'm sorry, Liz. Sean Reese, the DPW director, is going to come down and see what he can do with this question.
Quick answer. Ken Shada, 676 Fix. The quick answer to that is that the Water Department is an enterprise fund. So there are funds collected when you pay your water bill. As everybody knows, they pay into the infrastructure account. Those water main replacement projects come through as separate articles that you've seen over the last several years. So that's not included in the operations part of the budget because those are projects. Those aren't ongoing operational expenses. Those are individual projects that are appropriated as they are developed and planned and funded. So there's a very large chunk of money that is used for those projects that's separately approved by town meeting.
Sean, you want to, can you help with? You made the effort to come down tonight, so why not share it, whatever you have with us? Thank you for coming. The question is the $15,000 appropriation that's sought for the line item capital outlay.
Yeah, you can handle that. What do you spend the 15 grand on?
Sean, identify yourself for the
Sean
public.
Reese, DPW Director. I'm as part of the operating budget. As far as the capital outlay, well, it could be, I don't have the, is it in that family? So it's, okay, so part of hydrants, it's the actually hydrant replacement. So if your fire hydrant, we need to replace it, it's part of that, it pays for the hydrant replacement parts as well. So they're all within the family, but those are just general.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am.
Ann Pelon, 166 Washington Street. My water bill was like $8, and I went and said, why is it so low? And they said, well, the meters, those things, those little white things that they read with, they said they had to replace all those. So my guess is that's probably what the $15,000 was for.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know, but I have a feeling.
No, okay. Let me just clarify this, okay, before we start speculating. The $15,000 is for low-value capital. It's for low-level equipment like the fire hydrants, things like this. When somebody plows into one, we have to replace them. All those things like the meter replacement, those are separate accounts. So you pay a meter fee, that goes into a separate account that pays for the metering stuff. You pay an infrastructure fee, that goes into a separate account that's used for all infrastructure projects. So that's why I said the actual capital expense in terms of maintaining the water system is far higher than $15,000. That's all the low-value miscellaneous articles that have to be purchased to just almost like the equivalent of office supplies for a different budget.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ken. Thank you, Mr. Reese. Okay, the requested appropriation for DPW water, $2,310,392. Any discussion? Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. That it? We've just spent $64 million. Thank you.
Easy peasy.
We'll move to Article 16, transfer from available funds a sum of money for the Capital Expenditure Fund, sponsored by Mr. Cronin, sponsored by the Selectmen, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the Capital Expenditure Fund or take any action relative thereto. The motion is move to raise and appropriate $1,750,000 for the Capital Expenditure Fund. Is there a second? The explanation, I'll offer one here because of the somewhat technical nature of the article. It's been the custom of the town to annually transfer from reserves a sum of money to the Capital Expenditure Fund to be used at the October special town meeting to fund capital expenditure requests. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 17, capital expenditures, sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow a sum of money for the purpose of capital expenditures, including replacement and new vehicles and equipment for the schools, Board of Selectmen, town clerk, fire and public works departments, highway/water departments, and authorize the Board of Selectmen to trade or sell used equipment to a part of the purchase price or take any action relative thereto. The department, I'll give you the department, the requested item or activity and the estimated cost. DPW, one dump truck, $142,000. Town clerk, records management system, $26,400. Selectmen, replace town hall front doors, $23,000. Schools, Chromebooks, $165,000. Schools, networking infrastructure, $32,583. Schools, committee and fields, visitors bleachers, $50,000. Schools, Placentino Miller, parking lot repairs? Nope, strike that, that's been deleted, excuse me. Delete that from consideration. Schools, wheelchair, bus, van, $55,000. Schools, curriculum materials for elementary pilot, $40,000. Schools, exterior security camera system, $100,000. Selectmen, trash and recycling carts, $302,500. Fire department, modifications to municipal fire alarm system, $25,000. Is this number changing?
That's what I'm checking. The bottom line number on that.
Because we struck 25.
Yeah.
Just hold for 1 second, folks. We want to get the bottom line because there was one item that had been previously included has been stricken. Yeah.
Yep. $961,483. Thank you.
So the motion is to appropriate for the previously described items $961,483. Any discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me? Is Mr. Solnia?
Paul Solnia, 29 Church Street. I've got a question with respect to the Selectmen's proposal to replace the front hall, town hall front doors. It doesn't say to replace them in kind. I'm hoping that is in fact the case.
Yes, just like that.
Okay, great. End of question. Thank you.
Yes, sir. What's this guy's name? Bottom? Farrell. Farrell, yeah.
John Varrell, 928 Washington Street. There's a request here for money for a wheelchair bus and van for the schools, which I would assume is for special education kids. The last time this came up, I opposed that question. I have two boys who had learning disabilities. They went to an out-of-district placement. They were out on town vans. On 2 occasions, the vans broke down. Kids were stuck on the side of the road for 2 hours while the town tried to rustle up a van to go get them. On a 3rd occasion, the driver of the town van had surgery. It was scheduled surgery. We knew 2 months before it happened that it was going to happen. The school was unable to find a driver for the van. My kids spent almost a week at home without school because they had no transportation. When they finally had the opportunity to get transportation, they were chauffeur-driven in Lincoln Town cars every day. They could only put 2 kids in each Lincoln Town car, so I have no idea how many kids were in those Lincoln Town cars. But the problem was that in the 2 months they went looking for a driver, they were unable to get one. My kids drove that Lincoln Town car to school for almost a week and a half, and then the town contracted with Accept Transportation, which is part of our collaborative, to provide bus services for the rest of the school year.
Yeah.
And the bus that we bought sat in a parking lot unused.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
We have an opportunity to use Accept Transportation, which is part of the collaborative that we are part of, to deliver reliable service. If somebody calls out sick, they have a pool of spares that they can dispatch. If a bus breaks down the side of the road, they have a phone number that a parent can call to find out why their kid isn't home after 2 hours. And if a bus breaks down, they have buses that can go get. We should not own buses that have single drivers because it poses a risk to our kids. I would suggest that we not. Now, my boys are 21 years old. They graduated from high school, very proud of that. I am not speaking as somebody trying to get something for my kids. I am trying to prevent what happened to my boys to happen to another family in this town. I would urge you not to appropriate the money for this van, and I would ask the school committee to go back and contract services from Accept Transportation.
Any further discussion? Dr. Jackson?
Good evening, Brad Jackson. I'm the superintendent of schools. To the previous speaker, I am not familiar with the Lincoln Town Car situation as you describe it. We obviously don't own a Lincoln Town Car in the town of Holliston, so I'm not sure to what you're referring. I can tell you that we do utilize the services of the Accept Collaborative. They actually this year have been subcontracting some of those services to a private vendor, and we have been receiving enormous amounts of complaints from our current parents regarding that. Nonetheless, we will continue to contract with Accept Services for the majority of our out-of-district transportation next year, as the collaborative they've reduced by about 50% the amount of students they will be taking next year, because the city of Framingham has privately contracted with another vendor to do that work. This is for both in-district and out-of-district transportation. We have students who live in town, whether they require special education or not, who require specialized transportation in a high top or a wheelchair van. These are also vans that are equipped in such a way that they technically do not require the higher commercial type licensure that we have had trouble finding in the past, but have a different type of licensure, the 7D licensure, thank you, that does still have all the background checks associated with it, but when they are vans instead of the smaller buses, which we currently have, the van drivers are a little easier to find. We also have an agreement with the Finance Committee from the school committee that unless and until we do hire a driver for this van, that we will not purchase it. So unless and until that happens, we will not be purchasing it. But until we have an extra van, we won't be going out looking for those services. So I would encourage and support and ask that you support this request. Thank you.
Mr. Varro?
John Varrell, 928 Washington Street. So Mr. Jackson made light of the fact that town cars. They were, in fact, town cars. Mr. Boudet actually had to get our permission because the drivers of these town cars were not quarry checked by the superintendent as required by school committee policy. The reason why they had to use these Lincoln Town cars, and Mr. Boudet asked us to make a concession because they couldn't get the quarries in place, was because these Lincoln Town cars were Lincoln Town cars that had certification from the Department of Justice to carry diplomats. And they made a concession saying, we can't do the quarries as required by law. Will you accept this? It's a higher standard. And as a parent, we were willing to accept that. But I don't appreciate Mr. Jackson making light of it and presenting as if I'm making it up. Mr. Boudet is there. He's the one that called us asking to make this concession. It is not made up. Kids were being driven by chauffeurs in Lincoln Town cars because we could not provide transportation.
Any further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Lixie Carey, 37 Green Street. Can we talk about something else on this list, or I'm just wondering because I'm
The
curious.
answer to that is yes. Anything that's on the article can be discussed.
The trash and recycling carts, $302,000, just because it's the most expensive thing. I don't know what those are.
Jay?
So those are for, excuse me, J. Marsden, 32 Wendy Lane. So those are for us to purchase new recycling carts and trash carts. We're moving to a new system with a new contractor starting in the second half of the year, where they're actually going to have, they're going to bring us a sizable recycling container, a smaller container for trash, and they'll be able to service all of the houses in town with these specific carts, because they'll have an arm on the truck that can pick the barrel up, dump it in the trash truck. They only need one person per truck, and these are to fill in those, so everybody will get new trash containers starting at the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Any further discussion? If not, the motion then is to raise and appropriate the sum of $961,483 for the capital expenditures previously outlined. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted. Article 18, report of the Community Preservation Committee. The article reads as follows: to see if the town will vote to act on the report of the Community Preservation Committee on the fiscal year 2020 community preservation budget, and to appropriate or reserve for later appropriation monies from Community Preservation Fund annual revenues or available funds for the administrative expenses of the Community Preservation Committee, the payment of debt service, the undertaking of community preservation projects, and all other necessary and proper expenses for the year, or take any action relative thereto. With respect to reserves, the request is for a community housing reserve of $65,900, open space reserve $65,900, historic resources reserve of $65,900, and with respect to appropriations, administrative functions to support the committee $8,000, Lake Winthrop beach erosion $4,000. $40,000. The suggested motion is as follows. Move 1, to appropriate annual community preservation reserves as printed in the warrant. 2, appropriate $40,000 from community preservation general revenue to assist the Parks and Rec Department for Lake Winthrop erosion remediation. And 3, appropriate $8,000 from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve to support the administrative functions of the Community Preservation Committee for the town of Holliston for expenses incurred for fiscal 2020. Is there a second? Mr. Chamberlain? Do you want to present on this or not?
I think I'm all set.
All set, okay. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, then all those in favor of the motion as described, signal aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 19, transfer from available funds a sum of money for the stabilization fund. It's being postponed? Okay. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the stabilization fund or take any action relative thereto. The motion is moved that the town vote to indefinitely postpone this article. The explanation offered by the FinCom is that the stabilization fund balance has consistently remained at 8.1% of the omnibus budget, and there's no need to transfer additional funds at this point in time. Is there a second? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 20, amend agreement for the South Middlesex Regional Vocational School, sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. To see if the town will vote to amend the agreement among the towns of Ashland, Holliston, Hopkinton, Natick, and the city of Framingham with respect to establishment of a regional vocational school district, to incorporate prior amendments to said agreement, to eliminate outdated provisions, to recognize Framingham's change from a town to a city form of government, and to bring said agreement into alignment with the district's existing practices, or take any action relative thereto. Move that the article be approved as it's printed in the warrant in accordance with the amendments on file with the town clerk. The offered explanation: the amendment to the regional vocational school agreement addresses the change from Framingham as a town to a city. Is there a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 21, transfer funds from water retained earnings for water treatment plant. To see if the town will vote to transfer from water retained earnings $600,000 to 330450-58065 water treatment plant for the purpose of planning, permitting, and design engineering for the water treatment plant to be located off 784 Central Street, or take any action relative thereto. Motion, move that the town vote to transfer $600,000 from the water retained earnings account to account number 330450-58065 water treatment plant. This transfer would allow for the planning, permitting, and design engineering to move forward on the new water treatment plant. Is there a second? Any discussion? Yes. Ms. Tyler? No, we can do this together, Liz, with these.
Liz Tyler, 17 Norland Street. I want to know if this $600,000 is coming from the water surplus fund, which we pay $75 a quarter for, which was supposed to be used for infrastructure.
Ken?
The answer to that is no. That's a separate infrastructure fund. This is coming from water retained earnings, which basically is a fancy way of saying your water bills. It's the money that they collect from water bills, independent of the infrastructure fee.
So is this the same thing, the water surplus?
I can't hear.
Yes, that.
I'm sorry, Liz.
Her point was that she was asking. Oh,
Please have her speak it to the microphone so everybody can hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
My question was, on page 42, you have a water surplus retained earnings, and I wanted to know if that sum of money was the money that we pay quarterly, $75 for, and that the money for the treatment plant was coming out of this money.
The answer to your second question is yes, that's where the $600,000 is coming from. The answer to your first question is no, that's a separate account called the water infrastructure account that's kept separately.
Okay. So this is being paid by our water bill?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Ken. Any further discussion? Yes, sir. Give us your name and address, please, sir.
Bruce Wood, 128 Dalton Road. Question on this article for the Water Department. If I recall correctly, we appropriated money last year for Well 5, some improvements to Well 5. I'd like to know how this relates to that and whether these will solve the discolored water problem or whether we're looking at a longer-term process that may involve more funds to solve that problem.
Ken Shada, not the DPW director, just happen to know the numbers. The answer to your question is, what we did last year was we authorized the water treatment plant project for Well 5, and we authorized the borrowing to pay for that. That's $8+ million that we voted, okay? This is step one of that process. The particular project that it's addressing is exactly what you described. This is the design plan and for the Well 5 treatment plant. The $600,000 being paid out of retained earnings is just $600,000 less we're going to have to borrow when the rest of the bill comes due. But this is part of the $8 million project. This is the first payment on that.
Bruce Wood, 128 Dalton again. Thank you, Ken. Just a follow-up on what is the schedule for the entire project? Do we have that?
I'll let the DPW director address all the gory details, but suffice it to say that with any project of that magnitude, you have the design plan and then you move to the construction. The expectation, from what I understand, is that the construction will start either late this year or next year, something like that. The design plan is going to take like 6 months to do, and then the plan is to move into construction. I guess there are seasonal factors there that might factor in, but the project is going to be, I think the target is to have it completed in what, 2 years, 3 years, something like that? About 2.5. Yeah, so 2.5 years. So.
Sean, did you want to speak further? You're all set. Well, okay, sir. Any further discussion? Seeing none, then, all those in favor of the article, the motion as described, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So voted. Article 22, Library Planning Consultant. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds $10,000 to find a consultant who will determine what the services and facility needs will be for the Holliston Public Library and needs for the next 20 years, including but not limited to surveys, focus groups, an assessment of the current building, and a vision of what the library should be doing in the 21st century or take any action relative thereto. Motion, move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $10,000 for the purposes of hiring a library planning consultant. Is there a second? Any discussion? Mr. Cronin first, please. I'm calling on the sponsor of the article first to give them first shot, so go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This particular article also has a Finance Committee note attached to it. Recommends that the town raise and appropriate $10,000. It was a unanimous vote. I would ask the Finance Committee to explain why there was no abstention on this item as well.
Okay, the answer was there was. I misreported the vote. So there was an abstention on this one as well.
Okay. Yes, sir? I'll get you next, ma'am. What's her name?
Macoletti, 31 Summit Point Drive. Just curious with this request, if there's any insight that's been given that can be shared here with respect to any discussion surrounding criteria, qualifications, licensure, whether this would be subject to a bid process, any insight that might have been.
Leslie McDonald, Library Director.
We would go out to bid for it. I interviewed 3 consultants from the state, from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. So these are people who have done building programs with libraries, done consulting, and got 3 prices, talked to them, people that specifically deal with small libraries like ours. And just a little bit of background information. So this would be a planning consultant to map out services for the next 20 years and whether the building we're in can sustain those services. We know the building is old. Front half is 1904, back half is 1985. We have no parking. We outgrew the children's room 10 years ago. We know it's run down, it's shabby. What we don't know is what can we do with it, anywhere from living with it the way it is to maybe building a new building, expanding, renovating, building out within the structure that we have, that sort of thing. So the consultant would work with the staff and our patrons to look at library trends and what's good for Holliston for the next 20 years. And if we were to do a construction grant with the state, this would be required anyway, so we'll be ahead of the game. If we don't do that and we reconfigure it or work with an architect or construction company, it will be invaluable. So either way, it's good for us to be looking forward at this point.
Yep. John?
No, he already did. Okay. I would have, but he already did. I'm done.
John Cronin, 40 Harley Lane. One item that I just wanted to share with town meeting attendees is this matter came before the Board of Selectmen, as Ken mentioned earlier, back in December. Following the remarks about the impression of the building and its condition, we asked the town accountant to offer to us the amount of money that the town has invested in that building and that structure over the last 10 years. It was approximately $300,000, which in terms of investment is not a lot for that type of building. Furthermore, the building inspector, we asked him to go over there and do an inspection, tell us what the condition of the building is, what its overall shape is, and generally speaking, the building's in very good condition, Leslie, so I'll take small issue with the word shabby, but I get it, it's old. From an earlier comment, I talked about the need for a facility director, somebody who understands building structures, half-lives, building end-of-life issues and things like that. To me, this building just speaks to the need for investment of simple funds to keep it available for use. I'll leave it up to you all tonight to vote on whether or not you want the programmatic review that I think the library envisions. On top of that, I also want to note that when this issue comes up about what type of library we want to have, we're likely to encounter a rather stringent deed associated with the property. That property was donated to the town prior to the donated building back in 1904, I believe. It's got very strict language that says that land must always be used for a library. Doesn't mean that library can't be somewhere else. I'll let that kind of play out, but there are some restrictions that lie ahead. So notwithstanding, your intent tonight, your vote on this, I want folks to understand, from my perspective, it's not a money pit. We haven't thrown that much money at it. We probably haven't thrown enough at it. But having said that, I yield. Thank you.
Further discussion? Yes, Mr. Tyler?
Sam Tyler, 353 Chamberlain Street. As somebody who's been involved with municipal government for several decades, I'm somewhat concerned about the price tag here. I think, a library in this town is extremely important in terms of quality of life, and I questioned, frankly, somebody who's doing the work that is outlined here is going to do that for $10,000. I don't know if there was an RFP or request for proposal that was prepared, and that would outline the full responsibilities, but having dealt with municipal contracts and for consultants, this seems, for the magnitude of the responsibility, relatively low, and I want to make sure that we're getting our money's worth, but that this is a study that really is going to be the definitive word as to what the future could be. And there needs to be a future for a library in Holliston, but so the only question is, I guess, really, is 10,000 really going to get you what you want?
All of them said not more than $10,000. All three of them independently. And I asked the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, is that the going rate? And they said, yeah, pretty much. So I feel confident that we can get what we need. Now, keep in mind, they're not going to draw plans. This is not an architect. It's nothing like that. It really is the front end of it, what you want to use it for. And if you ever had to go to an architect or reconfigure things, they would say to you, what do you want to do with this building? Tell me first what you want to do. It's like when you buy a new house. What is it that you want? And then you find the house. So that's what we're really talking about. So I feel confident that $10,000 will do it. We may even be able to get it a little lower because there are a few little components that I can do on my own. But generally, no, it appears to be pretty much the going rate. Yeah, I think we're good.
Any further discussion? If not, then all those in favor of the motion, that is, that the town vote to raise and appropriate $10,000 for the purposes of hiring a library planning consultant. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Are those opposed? So voted. Article 23, solar panels at landfill, sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen as permitted with the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission in conjunction with the Board of Health to enter into a 20-year lease agreement and pilot agreement and/or contract for the reuse of the former landfill off Marshall Street for the purpose of siting a solar field or take any action relative thereto. The motion is moved that the article be approved as it's just printed in the warrant and as I've read to the town meeting. Is there a second? Was there a second? Yes, thank you. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am?
Liz Newlands, 40 Spring Street. My question is, what happens to the infrastructure when the 20-year lease is over?
Jay?
Jay Marsden, 32 Wendy Lane. The site itself returned to its exact same state that they found it in. Take the infrastructure away, and we get it back just like they found it.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 24, grant trail easement and parking lot layout, Blair Square, sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept certain easements and land situated at 81 Railroad Street, owner FD Realty Trust, as shown on a plan entitled Conceptual Trail Easement and Parking Layout, Upper Charles Trail, Blair Square in Holliston, Mass. Scale 1 inch equals 20 feet, dated December 18, 2018, prepared by GLM Engineering Consultants, more particularly bounded and described as follows: beginning at the easterly side of Casey's, closest to Central Street, 7.75 feet wide and 131.7 feet long, and at the westerly side of Casey's, closest to Church Street, 7.75 feet wide and 115.13 feet long, or take any action relative thereto. Move that this article be approved as it's printed in the warrant. I can offer the following explanation. The owners of the property have agreed to offer the town 2 easements which would allow for enhanced access and parking to the Upper Charles River Rail Trail. If approved, a total of 20 parking spaces would be created on either side of Casey's. As this involves an interest in real estate, if motioned and properly discussed and voted, it would require a 2/3 vote, and if it eventually comes to a vote, we'll try a voice vote. Voice vote okay, Jay, if it's 2/3, or do you need hands?
If it's unanimous, it's okay. Otherwise, unless you get a vote allowing you to declare,
Okay.
you have to count under.
Thank you. Okay, so do we have a second to the motion? Second. And any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a voice vote. If it's unanimous, then we will move on to the next article. If it's not, then we'll address it by a show of hands. It requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? I declare that unanimous, and that passes. Article 25, Blair Square improvements, sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. To see if the town will vote to appropriate from available, excuse me? I have it, I think. Yes, I have, Jay. Thank you. To see if the vote will vote to appropriate from available funds a sum of money in anticipation of grant funds to make improvements to Blair Square, including but not limited to parking, signage, drainage, and fencing, or take any action relative thereto. The motion is to appropriate $92,122 in fiscal 2020 from the Community Preservation Fund Open Space Reserve for funding for the construction of the remaining 400 feet of the Upper Charles Trail in Holliston and 21 parking spaces adjacent to the trail in the area between Central, Railroad, and Church Streets, with the vote being contingent upon the town making application for an equivalent amount for the same purpose under the 2010 Mass Trails Grant Program, with any CPA funding approved hereon to offset on a one-to-one basis by any grant money subsequently received. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Shada?
Yes, you said 2010. It's 2019 grant program.
I said 2000?
Yeah, I thought you said 2010. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I stand corrected. 2019 Mass Trails Grant Program. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, then all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 26, Maintenance and Repair of the Upper Charles River Rail Trail. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds $1,000 for the ongoing repair and maintenance of the Upper Charles River Rail Trail, or take any action relative thereto. The motion moved that the town vote to raise and appropriate $1,000 for the purpose of maintaining the Upper Charles River Rail Trail. By way of explanation, the $1,000 would allow the Trails Committee to purchase small items like rakes, shovels, and other tools to be used on the Upper Charles River Rail Trail. Items would be stored in the DPW garage. Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? So voted. Article 27, sponsored by the Board of Selectmen, accept Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 90, Section 17C and 18B speed limits. To see if the town will vote to adopt the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 90, Section 17C and 18B to allow the Board of Selectmen to set speed limits of 20 miles per hour or 25 miles per hour on a street-by-street basis in areas defined by state law as thickly settled or business district, which are not on a state highway, or take any action relative thereto. The motion is that this article be approved as it's printed in the warrant. By way of explanation, the town's public safety team on November 30th, 2018 recommended that the Board of Selectmen take action to adopt the 2017 amended law change under Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 17C, which gives the board the authority, if it is in the interest of public safety and without further authority, establish a speed limit of 20 or 25 miles per hour on any road inside a thickly settled or business district in the city or town which is not a state highway. Is there a second? Second. Discussion? Okay. Who's going to present? When? Who's the sponsor? Okay, I'll let her present. Okay, got it.
John Verrill, 928
Yes, John,
Washington
thank
Street.
you. Go right ahead.
Which is also Route 16. Just on the definition of a state highway, the state highway, Route 16, ends at Pine Street heading towards Sherburne. Does this exclude our ability to reduce the speed on the town-owned portion of Route 16, or is it the entire length of a numbered route?
Jay?
Jay Marsden, 32 Wendy Lane. If I heard John's question correctly, it was, does this give us the ability to make changes on the section of Route 16 that's just owned by the town and not on the state-owned part of Route 16? That was your question? My understanding is it's just the Holliston part of 16, Route 16, that we own, just the pieces that the town owns.
Ms. Hine?
Tina Hine, 142 Union Street. I just want to speak for a moment about this important article. Article 27 adopts a state law that simplifies how a town addresses speed concerns and gives towns the authority to fix these problems. With Article 27, there's no more need for costly and time-intensive traffic studies. This article gets rid of red tape. Article 27 will not automatically lower speeds on any street in Holliston. It will allow the town of Holliston to easily and without state involvement decide if, when, or where to lower speeds in the future. A yes vote on Article 27 allows Holliston to get more serious about an issue that affects all residents and businesses in some way on a daily basis. Holliston is the right kind of place, right kind of town for Article 27. We are an overwhelmingly residential town with a quaint downtown, and we have been at times gravely affected by speed. Holliston has been a place where pedestrians are hit. In 2015, in 2017, and in 2018, there were serious or fatal crashes in Holliston involving pedestrians. I imagine there is not a person in this room who has not seen or heard of a near miss with a pedestrian in town. Holliston is impacted by speed. Holliston police and fire respond to an average of 90, that's 90 crashes on average a year on Washington Street between the lights from Highland and Woodland Streets alone. Article 27 allows the town to easily address speed. Lower speeds reduce crash rates by giving drivers more time to react. Lower speeds reduce pedestrian fatality rates because the human body can handle the impact better. Where Holliston wants to encourage people to visit and spend time on foot and bike, we need to address speed. I urge you to vote yes on 27. Article 27 gives Holliston the tool by which we can calm traffic and preserve our small town in a community in a rapidly growing region. Consider Washington Street, which splits our town in half with 20,000 cars a day. In less than a 1-mile stretch through downtown, there are 2 churches, the town hall, the VFW, a funeral home, 1 senior housing development, the police station, dozens of retail businesses, 2 parks, trails, and 15 crosswalks. Within a half-mile on either side of this major route are Holliston's public schools, more retail businesses, and dozens more parks and crosswalks combined. I urge you to vote yes on Article 27. These are places that depend upon people visiting on foot or by bike. The strength of our community only gets better by more people feeling comfortable and safe visiting these places. Article 27, the just approved Article 25 to improve Blair Square, and the Article 28 for economic development will do exactly that, bring more people to visit on foot and bike. It is not radical or disruptive to vote yes to calm traffic along with these other initiatives. It is good policy. A yes vote strengthens our town. Your vote for yes on Article 27 is saying that it is more important to have a town that people want to visit and to have neighborhoods where people want to live safely than it is to allow cars and heavy trucks to pass through our streets as fast as possible. A yes vote on this article does not automatically lower speeds on all roads in Holliston. It does not automatically lower speeds on any road in Holliston. It is the first step in a deliberate and thoughtful process to calm traffic in our town without requiring traffic studies and state involvement. We can do better in Holliston for our school children who want to walk to school, for our retail businesses who'd benefit from higher foot traffic, from our seniors who want safer and more comfortable access to their community. We can do better to protect our residential neighborhoods and our quaint downtown from a growing transportation problem. We can calm traffic. Vote yes on Article 27 to allow Holliston to become more safe and livable for all. Thank you.
Hi, Joan Shaughnessy, 87 Morton Street. I'm sure you can answer this with one sentence, Jay. Is it customary that the Board of Selectmen would set a speed limit and not the police or fire department?
Yeah.
It just struck, I'm sure it's part of the Mass General Law, but it just struck me strangely.
Jay Marsden, Holliston Board of Selectmen, 32 Wendy Lane. So as the chief executive for the town, this area, we would do something like that in consultation with the public safety officials and talk to them and say, what would you guys recommend? What do you think works in this? But it's the board's sort of providence to do something like that, to make that change. But doing it with consultation and public safety, yes.
But the question is it customary that a municipal government, like a mayor or a Board of Selectmen, would set a speed limit? This is not something that's unique to Holliston. This isn't something, you're not usurping power.
Yeah, you got me on that one. No,
Okay.
it's not a power usurpation thing, no. There's a lot of power I would want to have. This one is not on my list, all that high up there. I'm glad we're going to do it, but I'm not, if I had to pick a power, it'd be like flight or invisibleness or something like that. This is good, too. I'll take it.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. Are those opposed? So voted. Article 28, Economic Development Enhancement Grant Legislation. This is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. I'll read the introduction to it. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for special legislation entitled Town of Holliston Economic Development Funding Program, authorizing the town to establish a privately sourced fund for the purpose of creating economic development tools and activities, including but not limited private grant and private loan authorities, and to further authorize the Holliston Economic Development Committee to adopt rules and regulations for the management, acceptance, and distribution of funds under the Act or take any action relative thereto. And the legislation is laid out for you in the 2 pages of the article. I won't repeat it here. It's been made available to all of you before tonight. And the motion is moved that the article be approved as it's printed in the warrant. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Yes, sir. Oh, okay. The committee?
Matt Coletti, 31 Summit Point Drive, here on behalf of the Economic Development Committee, where I serve as vice chair. And just for purposes of consistency, I'm going to read from my phone here. The purpose of the Economic Development Committee, as posted on our website, is as follows. Work proactively to promote, encourage, facilitate the development of responsible and properly planned commercial and industrial growth within the community in order to expand and strengthen the local economy, diversify the community's tax base, and to give the town's residents more opportunities to live, work, and thrive in an economically forward-looking and financially strong community. Article 28, as framed, is a tool to accomplish that. I summarize it as follows. Again, for consistency, this I've shared publicly, so I'll just read it again. Carried over from October town meeting is proposed legislation authorizing the EDC to establish and administer for the benefit of the public welfare a small business grant program funded through solicitation of private funds, intended for application, review, and award of funds by EDC to Holliston private small businesses for use toward exterior improvements. Though privately funded, the administration of the program is sought within the scope of the EDC committee authority as a committee of the board, and the town funds to be held in a special revenue account by the town. My personal position in favor, again, my personal position, a publicly administered program of private funds for the benefit of exterior improvements to local small businesses may both support and attract small business to the local economy to drive both continued population growth and expansion of the economic base. You're wondering, where might private sources come? One common source we can look to right in this town here, banks. Middlesex Savings Bank, for instance, in the past year has contributed $1.4 million to the communities where it houses its branches. It has 30 branches across Massachusetts communities. They're a very philanthropic organization, and there are countless others out there who could be a source that we could identify to contribute funds toward this program. So in that context, then, we'd like to put in place a program to administer the distribution of those funds in an equitable manner on a recurring basis to our local small businesses to support our economy.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That carries. Article 29, to amend the town's general bylaws, sponsored by the town clerk, to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaw, marijuana bylaw, which currently reads XLVII, to read XLV, or take any action relative thereto. This is to correct a typographical error. Move that the article be approved as is printed in the warrant. Is there a second? This could possibly be the only non-debated marijuana-related article. But I shouldn't prejudge. Is there any discussion? If not, then all those in favor of correcting this typographical error, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Now we're going to move to Articles 30, 31, and 32. These are zoning-related articles. Favorable action requires a 2/3 vote. Massachusetts state law requires that the planning board weigh in with respect to zoning-related articles, so I'll read into the record a letter from the planning board to Ms. Greendale, town clerk, dated May 6, 2019, from David Thorne, chairman of the planning board, with respect to Articles 30, 31, and 32, zoning bylaw amendment. With regard to the proposed amendments to the zoning bylaws at sections I-C, pre-existing non-conforming uses, structures, and lots, and VI-E, special permit granting authority, Article 30, sections 4-A, general requirements, V-B, exterior signs, V-C, off-street parking, V-N, performance standards, and V-R, wind energy systems, Article 31, and sections I-E, definitions, Article 32, I would respectfully report that the planning board held a public hearing as required by Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, on April 4, 2018. The members voted 5-0 to recommend support of the proposed articles as printed in the warrant. If you should have any questions regarding the matter, the board members will be present at town meeting, and I see that Ms. Sherman and board members are here this evening to answer questions. So let's move, if we could, to Article 30, sponsored by the planning board. This is an article to amend the zoning bylaw. It's a single page, so I'll read this one so you have the benefit of having me read it if you haven't had a chance to read it yourself. To see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw by making the following changes to section I-C, pre-existing non-conforming uses, structures, and lots, or take any action relative thereto. Item 1, in subsection 2.1.2, add the following sentence: when a special permit is granted pursuant to subsection 2, no use variance shall be required. Item 2, in section 3.2, delete the words "shall also require the issuance of a dimensional variance," and substitute "shall require the issuance of a special permit." Item 3, in subsection 3.3, delete the words "the non-conforming nature," and substitute "the gross floor area." Item 4, in subsection 3.3.1.4, add the following highlighted words at the end of the sentence: when an existing residence does not meet the required side yard setback, an addition may be constructed on the same line as the existing residence, so long as such addition does not result in any new nonconformity or exacerbate any existing nonconformity. Item 5, in subsection 3.4, delete the words 2 years and substitute 3 years. In section 3.5.1, delete the words 2 years and substitute 3 years. Item 7, in subsection 3.5.1.2, delete the words "in volume or area" and substitute the words "in gross floor area." Item 8, in subsection 3.5.1.3, delete the words "in volume area" and substitute the words "in gross floor area." In item 9, in section I-C, delete the word 6 months and substitute 12 months. Item 10, in sections 6, V1-E, special permit granting authority, add the following new subsection, 6, lapse. A special permit shall lapse 3 years from the grant thereof, which shall not include such time required to pursue or await the determination of a peer referred to in General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 17, if a substantial use thereof has not sooner commenced except for good cause, or in the case of a permit for construction, if construction is not begun by such date except for good, or take any action relative thereto. The motion is moved that the article be approved as printed in the warrant. Is there a second? Thank you. And when this comes to a vote, it will require a 2/3 vote, and we'll proceed in the same fashion we did on the early one, requiring more than a simple majority. Does the planning board want to be heard, or should we open it for discussion? Let's move to discussion. Anyone? I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Mr. McLennan? There we go.
Walter McLennan, 432 Fifth Street. Could someone clarify when this would take effect, please? If passed, when would it take effect?
It would be effective.
I'm sorry, so identify yourself, please.
Chris Canny, Building Inspector. It would be effective as of the date of the vote today.
I'm sorry, what date is it?
As of the vote today.
Okay.
At least enforcement would begin, correct, Jay?
It is and it isn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's retroactive from approval by the Attorney General.
Correct. There's an approval process through the Attorney General. However, because we are a town, we adopt the change as far as enforcement goes as of tomorrow. Is that correct?
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
Yeah, Jay.
Let's have counsel clarify if we would like to.
So zoning bylaws are a little bit different than general bylaws. They are effective as of the date of passage, but you have to wait for them to be approved by the Attorney General. The Attorney General has 90 days to approve them, so they don't technically go into effect yet, but once the Attorney General approves them, they're retroactive to the date of passage. The reason that it's important is that rights related to those bylaws are measured by, sometimes for grandfathering purposes, from the date of town meeting. But there is that period within which there is some limbo, and that's just the law. It's just one of those weird quirks of the law.
Yes, Walter, go ahead.
Just to clarify, what you may not be able to, but if there is a pendency of a ZBA decision at this moment, in a time frame of 20 days, perhaps, what would happen given that vote if it came under the number of items that are here? Just a curiosity.
The decision would be based upon the zoning bylaw that was in effect at the time of the application for the special permit or variance, whatever went before the ZBA.
Right. There are some bylaws that if you pass, like, for example, if you had a special permit bylaw for a shopping plaza that a proponent wanted to come in and it was new, they might want to wait for the Attorney General to approve it. These bylaws that are approved here, likely not the gap in time for the Attorney General to act is not really going to have much effect on it, provided that some of these require, our current bylaws require a variance currently for some things, and this is softening that up a little bit in some areas. So an applicant may choose to wait to know for sure that the Attorney General's going to approve it. So there is kind of that 90-day window where an applicant has to make a business decision, as so to speak, as to which set of bylaws they want to be under.
Any further discussion? Yes, Ken?
Just a request
more than a comment about the actual article. One thing that I personally have always found frustrating about planning board zoning changes is you get an article like this that says replace the word "the" with the number 5. And that means absolutely nothing to those of us who don't have the bylaw in front of us. I would greatly appreciate it if in the future, when the planning board brought zoning changes in, that they provided text of the old and new law or a marked up version of the bylaw so that we could properly assess whether the language changes are actually relevant.
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
Karen Langton, Planning Board. Could we have the slides? So if we could start with slide 2, please. These proposed changes that we are bringing to you this evening, you're welcome, that we're bringing to you this evening were part of a discussion between the Planning Board, our Town Council, and lining up with Mass General Law. Our bylaws don't have definitions in them that make it difficult for our building inspector, Chris Kenny, to enforce. We don't have something as simple as how do you measure building height. So we've taken the time to go back through and clarify language, and it is in these slides behind me, and it is very detailed. So if you would please enjoy looking along, we would appreciate it.
You want to do a walkthrough?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't want to spend an enormous amount of time on this, but it is complicated. I'll try to give you a sort of quick rundown if that works for everybody. Article 30 entirely deals with the section on pre-existing non-conforming structures, uses, and lots. This is a large part of the town. In the past, the town has rezoned parts of the town to decrease lot area requirements and setbacks and things like that. So we have a big collection of houses that fall into the pre-existing non-conforming category. The attempts here mostly were to either clarify the language that changed in the 2016 bylaw change to make it either easier to enforce or easier to understand what the intent of the bylaw was. Item 1 is based upon actually a piece of case law to make a change from an existing non-conforming use to another non-conforming use that is less detrimental, that would not require the issuance of a variance in addition to a special permit. This is just trying to help the ability for people to reuse properties in different ways that the bylaw may not explicitly allow as a new use. Item 2, where previously the bylaw said that if you were extending a structure along the same wall line, a variance was required. This conflicted with some of the new language that was added in the 2016 change. So it is now done by special permit, which coordinates with the language we adopted in 2016. Items 3, 7, and 8 just change a measurement technique where previously you used to use volume and area, which is not a defined term and is also hard to measure, to use gross floor area, which is a defined term and is relatively easy to measure without an architect. Item 4 is a clarification of language that changed in the 16 edition, which could have been interpreted to allow you to get infinitely close to a lot line if you didn't happen to be parallel. If your structure and your lot line were at an angle to each other, you may have been able to extend that line right up into the lot line, which is not the intent of the bylaw. So we're trying to make it clear that you can't get closer than would be allowed by right without a variance. And then items 5, 6, 9, and 10 were changes based upon changes to Mass General Law. Questions, comments?
Any further discussion? Okay, if not, then we'll move to a vote. Now, since these are zoning articles and they require a 2/3 vote, it's suggested to me by town council that with town meeting's consent, that if it's your desire, that I be permitted to rule in a non-unanimous circumstance, that nonetheless it was a two-thirds vote, the town meeting can do so if that's its pleasure. So if it's your pleasure, could I have a motion to allow town meeting's consent to me declaring a vote as exceeding two-thirds vote if, in my judgment, the voice vote reflects such a vote? Do I have a motion to that effect? A second? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? So voted. We'll now move to a motion on Article 30 to amend the zoning bylaw as described by the sponsor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. We'll move to Article 31. Article 31 also proposes additional zoning changes, and the motion is that the article be approved as printed in the warrant. Is there a second? Now, in lieu of me reading the article, which spans a couple of pages and is also technical in nature, I'll ask if the sponsor is prepared to make a brief presentation on this article so that you'll have the benefit of their insight in addition to the written word. Building Inspector, thank you, sir.
Hello. Item 1 adds a provision for corner clearance to just allow sight lines for vehicles at the corner, which essentially limits fences, walls, shrubbery, that sort of thing, within a relatively small area at the corner of an intersection, measured 10 feet back and diagonal across. Item 2 is not really much of a change at all. We're just moving a piece of language from what used to be in the accessory structures section of the bylaw, which included sheds and other things, to create a new section of the bylaw that deals just with wind energy systems. For some reason, we had them grouped together before. Items 3 and 6 allows signage and parking requirements to be modified by the planning board through a special permit process. Right now, it would be done through a variance, so we're trying to sort of loosen that up a little bit. Item 4 adds specific parking requirements for offices and medical office buildings. And item 6 alters our existing noise bylaw to line up with the state regulation, which is done through the DEP. It's just a different way of measuring. It's actually a little bit easier for us to measure that way. Oh, and we add hours for Saturday construction, which we previously did not have, although I'm sure it was never really enforced. We now are allowed to have Saturday construction, according to this. Comments?
Is that it, Mr. Canny? Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, can we again have a motion? I should have perhaps done it for the following 2 articles, but I like to go article by article. An article signifying town meeting's consent to me declaring a vote as exceeding two-thirds, even if it's non-unanimous, if in my judgment it exceeds two-thirds. Do I have a motion to that effect? And a second? All those in favor of that motion? Aye. All those opposed? So voted. Thank you. We'll move then to the vote on Article 31 to amend the zoning bylaw as described by our building commissioner. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted. That's unanimous. We'll move now to Article 32. Similar fashion. The article is to see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw by making the following changes to Section I-E definitions or take any action relative thereto. And it outlines 3 recommended changes to the zoning bylaw. And the motion is that the article be approved as it's printed in the warrant. Do we have a second? And could we have a similar discussion, explanation from the sponsor, if we could, sir? Please, thank you.
This is the easiest one.
Thank you.
We have 3 defined terms coming into the bylaw for things that have been referenced in the bylaw for many, many years. So now we will have a way to measure building height, we will have a way to measure maximum percentage of coverage, and we will have a way to measure setbacks. I don't think any of these things are particularly radical. So if anyone has any questions.
Okay, any further discussion? Can we have the same motion that we had in the previous 2 articles requesting town meeting's consent to my determination that if it's a non-unanimous vote, that the vote exceeds the two-thirds required for a zoning amendment article? Do we have a motion to that effect? And a second? All those in favor? Those opposed? So voted. Thank you. Now we'll move to a vote on the main motion. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That's unanimous, so voted. Thank you. Thank you, sponsors. Article 33, Sustainability Coordinator Position, sponsored by petition. Do we have a motion on that? Yep, okay. To see if the town will vote to direct the Board of Selectmen to create the regular part-time position of Sustainability Coordinator and to appoint a Sustainability Coordinator, and further, to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds appropriate compensation for this position. The Board of Selectmen shall fix the Sustainability Coordinator's compensation in a manner consistent with the personnel bylaw and related plan, and within the amount annually appropriated for that purpose, or take any action relative thereto. This is an article presented by a petitioner, and the motion is as follows. Move the town meeting recommend that the Board of Selectmen create the regular part-time position of Sustainability Coordinator, and further to work with the Finance Committee to identify funds to provide compensation for this position. The Board of Selectmen shall fix the Sustainability Coordinator's compensation in a manner consistent with the personnel bylaw. And the petitioner is identified as Utah Niquez, 129 Locust Street, and the motion is dated 5/16/19. Is there a second? Would the petitioner wish to be heard? Yes? Is him? No? Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah, okay. I gather this is not the petitioner, but go ahead. Just identify yourself, sir, and say what you will.
Yes, Jason Dion, 129 Locust Street. So I wanted to just add a little bit of additional detail about this, because this might be something that some of you are not familiar with. So first of all, what are we asking for? We're petitioning the town of Holliston to hire a part-time sustainability coordinator, and the estimated annual cost to hire a part-time sustainability coordinator is $40,000. So what do? 3 key things. A sustainability coordinator is a town employee responsible for organizing and coordinating efforts to move the town towards environmental and energy sustainability. They do this by securing grants and incentives for energy reduction and efficiency. Additionally, they perform outreach to the community on energy efficiency measures and programs. So something that's important to understand here, we're not blazing a trail. This is not something new. Luckily for us, sustainability coordinators are not an unknown commodity. A number of cities and towns across the Commonwealth have employed sustainability coordinators, and some have done so for nearly a decade. This is not an exhaustive list, but there are nearly 40 communities that have or soon will have sustainability coordinators. Some of these, in fact, are our neighbors, including Framingham, Natick, Millis, and Medway. And I'll also add that Sherborne just recently elected as well to hire a sustainability coordinator. And what that means for us is that we have the benefit of their experiences to know that hiring a sustainability coordinator could also be beneficial for Holliston. I recognize on the surface it might appear that we could have competing priorities, specifically environmental concerns versus fiscal responsibility, to be specific. But what I say is, let's make this win-win. The benefits of hiring a sustainability coordinator show that fiscal and environmental responsibility don't have to be mutually exclusive. This is an important point. So doing things now to help preserve and protect our planet is essential for us in the short term and for future generations. That point can't be understated. At the same time, whenever we consider using taxpayer dollars for any given purpose, we need to ensure that we're spending that funding responsibly. As a taxpayer, I would expect no less than that. But that brings me to what I believe is the most exciting prospect about hiring a sustainability coordinator here in Holliston, which is the return on investment. So research shows that the average sustainability coordinator can bring back 5 times the value of the investment. And this kind of goes back to being able to see how other communities that have already hired sustainability coordinators have been able to benefit from their investments. So I say, let's bring home the bacon. Or to my fellow vegetarians, let's bring home the seitan. Or bring me some gin. Anyway, so to remember, the advantage of a sustainability coordinator is that they specifically are tasked with researching, pursuing, and securing grants and incentives that are funded by state and federal taxes. So here are just a few examples of grants and incentives that currently are untapped by Holliston. Solarized Mass, Heat Smart Mass, Deploy Mass, Municipal Vulnerability Program, Curbside Compost and Food Waste Programs. Now, these aren't necessarily new programs. Some have actually been around for years. However, going after and winning grants and incentives is a very time-consuming process. Remember, grants don't just come to us. We need not only to be knowledgeable about what's out there, but then we have to go and proactively pursue them. Now, something that's exciting, I think, in this regard is that both Governor Baker and Speaker DeLeo both have proposals that would provide for $1 billion in funding over the next 10 years for resiliency, infrastructure, and energy efficiency initiatives. If that were to come to fruition, I would certainly like to see Holliston get a nice big piece of that pie. So to kind of bring this down and to put this into context, think about grocery shopping and how many of us could save a little bit of extra money at the grocery store by being a little bit more savvy about coupons and rebates and different things that we could take advantage of. So my sister-in-law does something that's called extreme couponing. I know it sounds a little bit scary, but she's actually saved thousands of dollars over the years. However, there's a lot of time involved in doing such a thing, and I personally like to take advantage of some of those savings, but I have a full-time job, I have a house to maintain, I've got meals to cook, I like to exercise, so I don't have time for this extreme couponing. However, if somebody told me that I could hire an extreme couponer for $10 a week and that person could bring me $50 a week in benefit, well, duh, of course I'd hire one. So let's talk about funding for a second. We are asking that this position be a town employee and be funded through future budgets. We would look to the Finance Committee to help identify appropriate avenues for funding this position. In addition, while the potential return on investment is promising, we understand there may be some hesitation. We get that. But to help mitigate those concerns, we have been working with our local representative, Carolyn Dykma. We thank her for that. And there's currently a House budget amendment for not less than $50,000 to help fund a part-time sustainability coordinator in the towns of Holliston and Sherborne. As well, we are coordinating with Senator Spilka to ensure this or similar language is maintained in the Senate budget. While this is not a guarantee, this is another possible avenue by which we could help to fund this position. So just some parting thoughts. One of the key things to remember about this is that grants are funded by tax dollars, and again, they don't just come to us. It takes a lot of effort to secure these. And I think that that Arlington's energy manager, aka sustainability coordinator, Ken Pruitt, he best sums up the essence of the advantage of hiring a sustainability coordinator, which is any town that doesn't have a sustainability coordinator is leaving money on the table. So I say, Holliston, let's not leave money on the table. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody for your time tonight and for your thoughtful consideration.
Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Varro, excuse me, Mr. Varro, right?
John Varrell, 928 Washington Street. The only concern I have about this is the language of split somebody with Sherburne. Are we hiring somebody that's already been identified with Sherburne? Are we hiring our own person that may be this person from Sherburne? Or what does that look like? Because tying ourselves to another town on a personnel thing does not seem like a very good idea.
I'm sorry, John, let me have the petitioner respond first, then I'll call on you. The position is representative, I should say.
Utah Nickel, 129 Locust Street, so one of the articles. Right now, the House budget amendment does specify that it would be a shared position, but we're working with representatives and Senator Spilka to try not to do that. But it was first, when we first started proposing this, was just a way for us to help both towns. So right now, we don't have to accept the funds. Again, it doesn't mean that it'll pass. I think Sherborne would like to hire their own and not be tied to us. So again, we're just trying to help alleviate the concerns with having the town foot the bill for this first year.
Thank you. Mr. Cronin?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Cronin, 40 Harley Lane. Just a few thoughts on this article. This group came before the Board of Selectmen several months ago, and as a new selectman, I had to recognize the influence these people were bringing to our town with their thoughts and their ideas. Personally, I was quite impressed by them. This node of individuals brought forth some ideas that were very innovative and creative. And in my public management experience, I informed them that I was all in on their idea, provided that it was funded with a grant. I felt that at this point we needed to engage them as a proof of concept, make sure that what they're proposing to us bears fruit, specifically additional grants to the town to pay for the programs that they envisioned. They're very thoughtful. They engaged. They did more work. They had a presentation in Sherburne that I attended. Very well done. Going forward, I think one of the things that the town needs to consider in this article and process is the fact that the town does pretty well already with green community grants and other grant opportunities to enrich our lives. I just wanted to point out, Utah, that the presentation you noted said that the town does not make use of the Municipal Vulnerabilities Grant Program, and I think you know it does now. We were just awarded $15,000 for Phase 1. And we explained in the last time we met this group that the plan from the Board of Selectmen's perspective would be this. This program will be best funded through a grant, but we needed a plan. We need to understand, what are we going to task this individual with doing? You can't just say, go out and get grants and have at it and let us know how it turns out. We wanted to find out what makes Holliston unique. What kind of grants will feature an improvement to our lifestyle and benefit the taxpayers. The Municipal Vulnerability Program grant through Phase 1, which has been awarded to us, will identify stakeholders in town government who this group can work with and then develop a plan. The Phase 2, which is where the money's at from this MVP grant, could be as much as $400,000, and that could include funding for this position. My personal position is I want to see a plan before I see a person. It makes more sense that way. There's an awful lot of energy behind this program. The state seems to be really energizing around environmental sustainability, and I think towns like Holliston will be smart to get in front of it. I'm all for it. I just want the plan first before we see the people. So I just want to give a little bit of background for folks to understand that. Sorry for taking a few minutes of your time. It's getting late, but there's a little bit more to it, and I hope that that helps you understand the full scope of this. Thank you.
John? No, thanks, John.
Joan Levinson, 66 Strawbrook Road. I am one of the members of this organization, 350.org, that has been working on this article. And I do want to thank everybody for all their help with this process. I also want to recognize that we are a green community and that Jeff Ritter has worked hard on bringing in some of that. But there is a lot more to be done. This is a time for a bold move to fight climate change. It's an existential crisis that affects you, our children, and our grandchildren. We have a moral obligation to solve this problem. One way to help with climate issues is to have Holliston hire a sustainability coordinator. This person will save the town money and also help Holliston reduce their carbon footprint. We all need to move forward and vote yes for the sustainability coordinator. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Marcia Holman, 51 Carl Road. Can I just get clarification on the salary? Because you're saying that it's going to be, you're trying to get a grant for the salary, but it's going to be a town employee. It's part-time, $40,000. When I divide that up by part-time, that's $38 an hour. So I'm just trying to figure out where that fits into the step category, that you want someone to be paid $38 an hour for a part-time position.
Yes, sir.
Utah Nickel, 129 Locust Street. When we started the discussion, we initially had said that we wanted a $30,000 position with benefits that way we could attract a strong candidate. So with the total, and so at the time we were estimating another $10,000 to $12,000 for benefits. In discussion with the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, there's some resistance to bringing on a town employee and doing benefits, and maybe more expensive than what we had estimated. So our recommendation would be, again, this is just what we're asking, what we're recommending would be to be competitive, and to get someone in would be great to hire with benefits. So the total compensation package would be around $40,000, if that could be done with a $30,000 salary with benefits. Otherwise, if it was just a straight part-time, we'd recommend, paying a little bit more, since we're not paying them benefits. Just a point on the MVP, I think it's great to have a plan. I just think the person that's going to implement the plan should also be part of developing that plan. So having a sustainability coordinator in as we move forward into the phase 2, which was what our slide had at the MVP action slide was for phase 2. So, but thank you.
Ken, my notes say the FinCom will make a recommendation at town meeting. Do you want to be heard?
I guess now I do.
Okay, go right ahead.
Yeah, we talked about this, and I want to clarify a few things. As I mentioned in my presentation, the article as written and the motion as written, we cannot, as town meeting, usurp the statutory authority of the Board of Selectmen. So passing this with regards to the question about salary, that is the purview of the Board of Selectmen, and obviously it comes through the Finance Committee from the budget standpoint. But passing or not passing this doesn't impact the salary of the position. If the selectmen choose to create the position, then they can set the compensation level as they see appropriate. As far as the Finance Committee recommendation, we did discuss this. We reviewed the motion as presented by the petitioners, and the Finance Committee voted to support it.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Would it be fair to say, Ken, that the article is in, I'm sorry, Mr. McLennan? Sure. No, come on. You couldn't hear what he said? Ken, could you give him the last words again?
Sorry about that. We voted unanimously to support the motion as presented tonight.
Yes, Walter.
Walter McLennan, 432 Fisk Street. I don't know if I can do this, but I hope I can. I'd like to move for indefinite postponement.
Sure. Sure, go ahead. You want to be heard?
The reason I do this, I suggest this, is it seems to me to be...
I'm sorry, is there a second to his motion? Second, go ahead. Go ahead, Walt.
Yeah, it seems to me to be premature in terms of presentation to the town. It is mentioned how studies show, and certain things follow from the presentation of the presenters. I'm always concerned when references are made to studies show. We all should have a chance to look at those studies related to this type of new position for the town. And I would like to see something like this coming from the Board of Selectmen after due consideration, although many times something coming from the citizenry makes sense. But that's enough said. I just recommend indefinite postponement. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion to indefinitely postpone? Yes, sir.
Matt Coletti, 31 Summit Point Drive. I will just go on the record as a formal second of the indefinite postponement. More specifically, I'd like to see, I like the concept, I get it. I'd like to see hard financial projections relating to, of the towns that were shown on the slide there, what the actual impact has been for them. I'm sure that information is attainable and demonstrable and could be presented to us to help in this determination.
Any further discussion on the motion to indefinitely postpone? Yes, ma'am.
Leslie Dooley, 28 Summer Street. given what I've heard today about the latest report that came out from the UN about the extreme climate change problems, I think that voting indefinitely to postpone talking about a $40,000 position to help our town, I think that's unwise, and I think we should be voting on this position.
Further discussion on the motion to indefinitely postpone? Seeing none, then we'll move to a vote first on the motion to indefinitely postpone. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? No. That's defeated. We'll move then now to a vote on the main motion. Is there any further discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, then the motion will be to direct the town to, let me read it again so there's no misunderstanding. Move that the town meeting recommend that the Board of Selectmen create the regular part-time position of Sustainability Coordinator, and further to work with the Finance Committee to identify funds to provide compensation for this position. The Board of Selectmen shall fix the Sustainability Coordinator's compensation in a manner consistent with the personnel bylaw. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. That carries. Now, before we move to Article 34, which will be the last article of the evening, I just wanted to take a moment to thank each of you for coming down and attending town meeting tonight. It's somewhat unusual that we're able to conduct all the town's business in the single evening, but everybody has had an opportunity to participate, speak their mind when they choose to speak their mind. I think it's perhaps reflective of the hard work that the FinCom does and the confidence that the town has on the Board of Selectmen that the debate is less vigorous and detailed than it might otherwise be. So I just want to thank you all and hope to see you all here again in the fall for the annual, perhaps with some of your neighbors. Having said that, let's move to Article 34 if we can. This article is entitled Off-Premises Liquor License. It's by petition. And be mindful of the fact that any individual or group of petitioners can seek to have an article included in the town meeting warrant, and having successfully done so, it's incumbent upon the petitioner to follow through, to prepare motions, present motions, and be prepared to present the article. It's not incumbent upon the selectmen or the town council to do that individual's job. So the article was presented, and I read it as follows: to see if the town will vote to grant a full off-premises liquor license to Crafted. I have not as yet received a motion, so I'll call on the petitioner if they're here present this evening. If they have a motion that they would like to present, then we'll certainly entertain it. If no one steps forward, then, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes, sir. Hmm? Yeah. Are you the petitioner, sir? Okay, step forward, identify yourself, and let us know if you have a motion for us for town meeting to consider. Thank you.
I'm Ken Onifray. I'm the managing partner of Crafted. I don't know exactly how to phrase this to you in terms of motions and whatnot. I'm asking the town to grant us a full liquor license, off-premises liquor license. Our current license provides for us to sell beer and wine and cider. For off-premises consumption, meaning at-home consumption. A full off-premises liquor license would enable us to expand our offerings to spirits. I guess my motion would be to vote to grant the full license.
Okay, we're going to give you all motions need to be in writing, sir, and they don't have to be crafted by a lawyer, but they need to be understandable. So we're going to give you a motion form if you could, and ask you to reduce to writing what you're requesting the town to do. And I will read the motion, and if it's seconded, we'll just have the town meeting debate it. If you can, when you've completed it, give it to Mr. Talman, the town council, so he can take a look at it before I do. Thanks. Oh, it's okay.
This is my staff.
It's an easy crow. I'll do a little more preparation next time. I didn't have much time to prepare for that. Here we go, huh? She did her best. I had to say something nice about it. She did her best. You thought we could do it in a night?
I didn't do it.
That's it. Right. And some of the gadflies are gone. I mean, used to be, Jack Blaze used to have something to say. Laughlin did. Liz has lost steam. She used to fight with Paul all the time. This fucking guy tying up all these people over something as serious as a full liquor license. They're gonna run away. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do we have a license available for this?
No, it's traditional.
Legislature? No. Thank you for your patience. Yeah, sure, Jay. The petitioner's going to read his motion, which is fine. Go right ahead, sir.
Apologies for the delay. I
That's
wasn't
all right.
informed I needed to provide this part for the meeting tonight. I move to amend the motion as follows to see if the town, Article number 34, that is. I move to amend the motion as follows to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the state legislature on behalf of Crafted for one additional off-premises liquor license for sale of all alcoholic beverages.
All right, sir, the only suggestion I'm going to make is that there is not a motion yet to amend. So if you can take out the earlier part of it and say you move to amend a motion, just say that you move to make a motion, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
You with me?
Yes.
Okay.
With regard to Article number 34, I move to, I'm sorry, what's the language again?
Whatever you make a motion or you move.
I move to make a motion as follows to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the state legislature on behalf of Crafted for one additional off-premises liquor license for sale of all alcoholic beverages.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. If you could have that, pass that up to Mr. Talaman so we can take a look at it, and the town clerk can too, please. Yeah.
You might do it for a specific address, but it's not really typical. I mean, we can leave it as is.
They've done it before, but I think
Yeah, I know. It's a little.
Okay. All right, we find the motion to be in order then. It's open for discussion. So anything more you wanted to say about the merits of it, or you said what you had to say?
I believe I've said all I have to say.
Great, thank you. And further discussion? Board of Selectmen want to be heard on the topic? Not required. Okay, Mr. Shader?
Just one quick question for town council on the nature of this. Is this something that town meeting can actually force to happen, or is this just an advisory type of vote? Just wondering.
Certainly legal for town meeting to take this vote. It can't compel the selectmen to seek that special legislation, but it would give a flavor of the position of the town to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, Sam?
Sam Tyler, 353 Chamberlain Street. The language that you voted on, or would vote on, makes it seem as if the selectmen have no obligation other than to pass it on to the legislature. Now, I guess the town council has signified otherwise, but it would seem that language that would say that the town meeting approves the petition to be considered by the Board of Selectmen as to its advisability, and if so, to then go to the state for permission would be a more appropriate language for this, rather than make it seem as if it's going to be submitted to the selectmen, and the selectmen automatically are required to then submit it to the legislature. So I don't know if, in terms of the current wording, that what I'm suggesting is going to happen anyway. But if that's not the case, then I think there ought to be a change in language to ensure that it's the selectmen that'll make the decision as to whether this is advisable, and then proceed accordingly. And if not, then the petitioner can go directly to the Board of Selectmen. The petition by residents is an important part of town meeting, and clearly we just had an example of that with the sustainability coordinator position, but it shouldn't be used as end around the selectmen in terms of its responsibility to the town. So I guess I would bring that back to town council as to whether the current language would give the selectmen the authority to make that decision first and not be automatically obligated to submit it to the legislature.
Sam, I'll pass this down to Jay, but to read again the motion, it said I moved to amend, but he deleted that verbally. It says to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the state legislature on behalf of Crafted for one additional off-premise license for the sale of alcoholic beverages. So it doesn't direct them or mandate it, it simply authorizes them to petition, authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the legislature.
Yeah, but it doesn't provide the opportunity for the Board of Selectmen to determine whether that's advisable or not. It makes it seem as if it's a direct change, move from town meeting to the selectmen, to the legislature, without the decision and consent of the Board of Selectmen.
No, so to answer the question, this is very similar to what we did, I believe, a year ago. This doesn't grant anyone a license. The town doesn't have the authority right now to grant a license because we're out of licenses. This just gives the legislature an opportunity to grant us an additional license. If the legislature decided to do that, if the selectmen decided to petition the legislature, which they can or cannot do as they see fit, and the legislature saw fit to grant an additional license, then Crafted would have to apply to the selectmen to get that license, and the selectmen would go through that process like they would in any circumstance. No guarantees to Crafted. They would have to prove their mettle before the Board of Selectmen as the liquor licensing authority. The purpose of the warrant article is just to get that additional license, because there are no other licenses available right now.
But that should be a decision of the Board of Selectmen as to whether the town really needs another liquor license. This may be an easy one, but it still should be the decision of the selectmen to go forward to submit the request.
It is.
But that's not, it doesn't sound like that's in the language.
But it is.
Sound that way.
So what I said before is, this is just advising the selectmen that if the town votes positively, to have the authority to petition the legislature. The selectmen could take a vote tomorrow to never petition the legislature for that. No one can compel them to do that.
I think the wording of the language doesn't seem to give the selectmen that choice. If there could be change in the wording to reflect that, so that it's clear that it stops with the Board of Selectmen and they make the decision as to whether it's worth proceeding and bringing another liquor license into town, and then submit it to the legislature.
They have that choice.
Okay, if they have the choice, then fine.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't sound it from the wording of the order.
All right, thank you, Sam. Any further discussion? Yes, ma'am?
Sorry to bother you. Kathy Pennypacker, 68 Pilgrim Road. While I do think granting a request is a great idea, I don't know why we're really here. It would seem to me that you might have gone to the selectmen originally. I'm trying to get clarification. And they said, no, that we don't want to request another license, or they said yes, or you didn't go, or I'm just trying to figure out why it has to do with us. It would seem to me it's a process, if we're out of licenses, that the petitioner goes to the selectmen and wants them to go to the state on their behalf. Did that happen? And we're here to put pressure on that to happen? I'm a little confused to the process. I've been here since 1993. I've never voted on a liquor license. So I'm trying to figure out why we're involved in the process and not directly to you. Is that a fair question?
Fair question.
Thank you.
Fair question. Jay Marsden, 32 Wendy Lane. I believe that, well, the reason that we're here is because the petitioner asked to put this article on the warrant article. And we don't have any, once the petitioner has met the requirement to put the article on the warrant, we don't have the ability to pull that article off the warrant. It has to be on the warrant. I understand what Kathy's saying. The petitioner did not come to us ahead of time and say, hey, I want to suggest that you guys go in front of the, go to the legislature and petition in front of the liquor license. That hasn't happened. We've done that in the past. It happened once before where somebody came to us and said, I want you to go through this process. And we did that. So this process ended up in a slightly different location, but we'll end up in the same exact place. We'll have the ability, if we decide to petition the legislature for the license, we would then have the ability to put that license out essentially to anybody who's interested in it. In the past, when somebody has come and done this the last time, obviously they were hoping that it would look favorable on them, that they were sort of moving that project along. Whether that happens this time, I think Sam's right in the sense that this authorizes us to do it, but where we go with it, that rests with us in our capacity as a Board of Selectmen, and we're not. Correct. That's right. That's right. If I'm incorrect, counsel, please let me know.
Yeah, and just one final point to that. The selectmen can't petition the legislature unless this body gives them the authority to do so. They could petition the governor, but sending a bill or a requested bill to the legislature like we had earlier for that special revenue fund, this body has to authorize them to send that to their legislator.
I just want to ask a follow-up to town council on that point. So if we do nothing on this tonight, and this matter goes just to the selectmen directly, they would have to come back to us in October with the special legislation for approval to file it? Or if we vote in the affirmative tonight, can they go straight to the special legislation? That's what I want to be clear about. Because this is just asking the selectmen to create the special legislation, but I believe town meeting has to actually approve the special legislation to be submitted.
No, they don't.
Okay. So I just want to make sure what we're authorizing tonight. Because if the process, just in my opinion, if the process is that they should go to the Board of Selectmen to have this matter dealt with that way, and then the selectmen come to us with the authorization to file the legislation, that to me seems the proper course of action.
It is helpful when a petitioner or anyone seeking special legislation lays out the actual language of the special act, but it's not required under law. If they fairly describe what the nature of the special act will be, and that this is pretty much a one-issue special act, then the selectmen can work with us and craft a simple special act, which in this case would be about 2 paragraphs long, very simple. Other towns have done it, and petition the legislature. If there was some ambiguity, I might think that more exacting language would have to be made by this body, but just fairly describing what they'd be petitioning for, which I think is the case here, is sufficient. Doesn't have to be verbatim enactment by this body.
Okay, thanks.
Request to move the question. Require a second or not?
Yeah.
Second, okay. Second for that? Okay. All those in favor of moving the question, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? So voted. And we'll now move to the main motion, as I've read on two separate occasions. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. That carries. That concludes. Anything left? No. Motion to adjourn. Is that seconded? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you and good night.